Ukraine. Hey, it's Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. If you want to join the show, you can bring up anything you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio, it's Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
Lots in the news to talk about here tonight, including we'll give you an update on just how bad things are getting in Germany and likely going to be the rest. Yeah, likely going to be the rest of Europe as well. But the story in this particular case is about businesses closing as a result of the electricity bills already shooting up, and it isn't even out. Just today's the last day of summer. Okay, so
people are gonna freeze.
Yeah,
they're gonna freeze.
It's. I mean, I don't relish that happening. I feel bad that that's going to happen to them. But a lot of people have been cheering this Ukraine thing on, and this is the price they're going to have to pay.
Hey, hard times create strong men.
That much is true. So we'll see what comes out of this. But so that's.
They can always just do what the ignorant people out there are suggesting. It's like, just light a fire, light a campfire, or whatever. There's
light a candle.
There's
you have a fire in your living room.
Well, a candle obviously provides no warmth, but there's a lot of people out there saying, all you have to do is light a campfire or whatever, without any regard for the fact that you don't want to light a campfire in your living room.
And what are they going to burn except their furniture?
Yeah.
True.
I mean, you got to get the wood from somewhere.
Yeah, what trees are you going to cut down? You don't live in the woods like we do here in New Hampshire. If you're in the city, what the hell are you going to burn? Trash?
Yeah, it's going to run out, even if you are getting wood deliveries. If everybody's burning wood,
this
then,
whole Greta Thunberg utopia that we have entered into is just preposterous. It's ridiculous that people thought 2 years ago that this was the way to go.
Well, coming up, that's on the way. Plus, Conan, you want to talk about fan baiting. And we're going to find out what that is. I didn't know. I had not heard the term prior to our pre-show discussion here. But in other international news, this one's pretty big. Russia, according to Reuters, is now unfurling a plan to annex swaths of Ukraine. So some people had thought that was what was going to be happening when Russia invaded the Donbass region of Ukraine. This
is what Putin said from the get-go.
Well, no, at the time he said he was supporting their independence movements. So that'd be different from annexing.
But they didn't want independence. They wanted to join the Russian Federation, right?
So
did they? I
thought they did.
Well, that's what they're going to be voting on this week, apparently, as to whether or not to do that.
Who's voting?
Well, the people in the Donbass regions of Ukraine.
So Putin came out and he says, we want to give these peoples sovereignty to allow them
because they already
react.
Voted. Remember, in 2014, they already voted to separate from Ukraine. Ukraine refused to acknowledge the votes. They basically said the vote's a sham. We're not going to acknowledge what these people have said that they want, and you're going to continue to be part of Ukraine. Then Putin invaded earlier this year, saying he supported the independence movements.
Correct.
And he was backing them.
To give them the option to vote now in 2022 to gain access to Russia.
Well, in theory,
this is just part of the 6-month cycle.
I mean, there certainly is that narrative that paints Putin's actions as heroic and all of that, but this is more just states are hostile to the idea of secession. We saw it with Catalonia. Now we see it with Ukraine. Of course, we saw it here in the United States back in the 1860s or whatever. And I tend to think that obviously, if a state were to secede today, it wouldn't necessarily lead to a war or anything like that. But the United States wouldn't be in a hurry to recognize it, just like Spain wasn't in a hurry to recognize Catalonia and Ukraine.
Well, the U.S. would love to recognize Taiwan's independence.
Oh, yes.
They're against the Donbass independence, but they're for Taiwan's independence. So it's all political.
Right. Well, they're not in support of anyone's independence. I mean, they're in support.
Certainly not within the U.S., but they are in support of Taiwan's independence from China. They are.
No, they're in support of Taiwan's dependence on the United States for security.
That's one way of putting it.
But I don't think they like the idea of Taiwan being independent at all. They just want to make sure that Taiwan is not dependent on China.
They want to make sure that Taiwan continues to sell computer chips, to the U.S. At whatever price they're currently selling them at.
Well, I don't know what their motives are, but it's certainly not any sort of altruistic desire to see the Taiwanese people be independent and free.
That's probably true.
Well, I think in the case of the Donbass region of Ukraine, I believe that the peoples there, would like to be independent if they could manage it.
Yeah.
But they have been
between
suffering.
A rock and a hard place.
Yeah, exactly. They've been suffering for a decade now. From the western side of Ukraine, and they would like to side themselves with someone who's going to support them, which is Russia.
So let me give you some details on this. Russia on Tuesday gave support to plans by separatists, which it backs in Ukraine, to hold referendums, paving the way for the annexation of swaths of additional territory, a direct challenge to the West that could sharply escalate the conflict. After nearly 7 months of war, including a critical battlefield defeat, or so the Western media claims.
It's bullcrap.
Northeastern Ukraine, Putin is pondering his next steps. In what appear to be choreographed requests, Russian-backed officials across 15% of Ukrainian territory, an area about the size of Hungary or Portugal, lined up to request referendums on joining Russia. The self-styled Donetsk DPR, the Donetsk People's Republic, and the Luhansk People's Republics, LPR, which Putin recognized as independent just before the invasion, and the Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions have asked for votes over less than 24 hours. Officials from these regions said referendums would take place in just days, as soon as Friday of this week through Monday, and Russia does not fully control any of the 4 regions, with only around 60% of the Donetsk region in Russian hands. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much of the region Russia controls with troops. What matters is how many of the people in that region don't want to be part of Ukraine anymore.
Yeah.
And the people,
well, we'll never know.
Well, you can never trust any of the results, right? Is that what you're saying?
You can't trust the media covering any of this.
No, you can't trust any side of this. There's no doubt about it. But the fact is, the people that live in these areas, largely, they speak Russian. They, have family in Russia.
I speak English, but that doesn't mean I want to bow to the king.
I get what you're saying, and their desire for independence is not necessarily a desire to join Russia either. So they had originally just voted for independence from Ukraine. But it's not unbelievable to suggest that there is a majority, maybe even a significant majority of the people that live in these areas who do not want to be part of Ukraine. I don't think that's going out on a limb. Like, people from Russia, family in Russia, they speak Russian. Do they really want to be part of Ukraine? And the previous votes show that they don't. Now, again, the other side says, well, the votes are illegitimate. Well, they're corrupt.
But the whole thing, elections are illegitimate. So what makes this election any more illegitimate than any others?
I get you. So how do you show then that a certain amount of a given area's people think a certain way? How do you do it?
You can't, and that's the fallacy. That's the whole problem with the issue of the states. Even if they could show that, what gives the majority the right to determine that the minority have to submit to this ruler or this other ruler?
So how do we secede from the United States here in New Hampshire?
Right.
We just do it. I think that this is what is going on in Ukraine, Russia, is very important to our movement, and what what needs to take place. Really, the telling point of all of this is the power of the state. Russia, the United Nations, and the United States. And that is the problem. As long as they remain as powerful as they are, they can call the shots and they can move people around on the chessboard. What really needs to happen is the power of the state needs to crumble, which is what's going to happen, in my opinion. And then when that happens, the federal government, as far as the U.S. is concerned, in New Hampshire and Texas and California, whoever wants to secede from the United States can do so.
So you're saying the federal government needs to crumble, its power needs to be stepped down,
diminished,
and then they will be hard pressed to stop us from leaving. Is what you're saying?
Correct. The only problem is that with this whole Build Back Better movement, the powers that be, the elites, they actually want this to happen. They want to tear everything down, especially the monetary system.
They're working on that.
What is their backup plan?
But aren't they going to say the same thing when we have a vote in New Hampshire? So, you can't trust their vote. They're a bunch of secessionists. They've stacked the.
They will.
They're already doing it.
There's more on the way here. You can join us 603-283-6160 here. This is Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Gold and silver. You can own the most stable assets in recorded history with BullionMax.com. Buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals shipped fully insured direct to your home. Free Talk Live can get you their silver starter kit at employee pricing. Just go to BullionMax.com/FTL. It includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products. This offer is limited to 1 per household, so get yours now. Go to BullionMax.com/FTL. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join the show here. Just dial on in here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about the potential of an annexing of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, or the Donbass region, if you will, of Ukraine. That is the current plan, apparently, that has been announced by the Russian government, that they are now going to be putting forward referendums. So according to the report here by Reuters, There are certain Russian-backed officials in these areas of Ukraine who have called for referendums again. Remember, similar things happened in 2014, where Luhansk and Donetsk did declare their independence from Ukraine. The people supposedly voted for it. Now, again, the Western media and the Ukrainian government is saying, well, those weren't legitimate elections, blah, 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 so we're not going to recognize this, and they forced them to stay within the Union. Aria, you bring up a good point. It's like, well, we don't really know what the truth is. We don't know whether these are legitimate elections or not.
Yeah, but I was just thinking about that. If our society, if the United States or the United Nations or any of these, nations or ideas or organizations that pride themselves on being democratic and just and all of these other noble characteristics truly cared about democracy and justice and all of these noble characteristics, then surely they would have prioritized some sort of methodology to go into places and help ensure that their elections were actually fair and just.
Doesn't the UN have that? I mean, can't they contact...
but I can't trust the UN because they've proven over so many decades that they're not allied with the ideas of democracy and justice.
No government is. No powerful elite group is, in fact, they'll say they are, but in fact we know that is the ultimate end to their power.
Yeah, and generally,
is democracy.
Right, and people who are in charge of, quote unquote, a given landmass, these government agents who are criminals, right? They're violent gang members. These people don't want their territory to get reduced.
No.
So they're going to do everything they can to fight against, and that's what's going on in Ukraine is, this isn't, had Ukraine allowed these areas to declare independence and go their own separate ways, there's a strong argument the invasion from Russia would never have come. But it did come. Now, arguably...
Well, it may have come under different pretexts. If Putin is telling the truth, then you're right. There's a strong reason to believe that it would not have come.
Here's all I really want, and this is something that I have not seen in favor of Ukraine. I want someone from the Donbass region to just come right out on the television, on the video, on the YouTubes or whatever, and just say, hey, look, we're against Russia. We don't want any part of them. We want to be...
There's surely someone there who's against Russia.
All Ukraine has to do is put a gun to someone's kid's head and say, hey, go on television and say this or we're going to blow your kid's brain out.
Where's the video? All I see are people in the Donbass region saying, hey, we want Ukraine to leave us alone and stop persecuting us, and we want to be independent, but it's not happening. So I guess we just have to side. We have to side with the biggest bear over there.
It's true on the other side as well, though. There could be, some little kid with a gun to his head, and so you've got this Ukrainian up there saying, we want independence, we want to ally with Russia or whatever, so the Russians don't blow his kid's brain out.
Well, I haven't seen just one little kid. I've seen overwhelmingly support of we want to join Russia.
There's definitely a large amount of support there to leave the Ukraine, possibly to join Russia. When asked about the referendums, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said, quote, "From the very start of the operation, we said the peoples of the respective territories should decide their fate, and the whole current situation confirms that they want to be masters of their fate." Now, you go on what these people say. And I don't like to say this, but the Russians are the ones that sound reasonable here.
Yes,
I thought you said that was I thought you said that was a Ukrainian.
No, that's the
minister.
Russian foreign minister. The Ukrainians would not say we want them to decide their fate.
Ian, this is part of clown world.
Yeah.
This is the world that we have entered into.
But the Russians are only saying this because the people want to be loyal to Russia. If they were saying it the opposite way and saying, hey, we want to join NATO, then Russia would take issue with it. Suddenly it wouldn't be fair for them to determine their own fate anymore.
Yeah, but I haven't seen that. I haven't seen those YouTube videos of
the whole
Donbass
justification
region.
for Putin's war was him saying, hey, look, Ukraine wants to join NATO and we can't allow that.
Well, you're not going to see it anyway,
there were three steps. There were keep NATO off our doorstep. Yes, Aria. There was also to make these regions of Ukraine independent, and also to gain access to Crimea.
Unless you speak Russian or Ukrainian, you're not going to be able to make any heads or tails of a video.
They watch Hollywood. They watch Hollywood movies. They know English.
No, they don't. Not all.
Some of them do.
You're going to be relying on a translator.
Hey, I love me some Slavic girls, man. I keep my eyes. My eyes are peeled.
Yeah, is it because they live in poverty, so they'll do anything for money?
There's some beautiful women over there.
There are.
Good trad girls, good traditional girls who know their place.
They want a way out. They're willing to be with an American man to get the hell out. If Moscow formally annexed a vast additional chunk of Ukraine, Putin would essentially be daring the United States. This is the interpretation here of Reuters. They said it will be daring the U.S. and its European allies to risk a direct military confrontation with Russia, the world's biggest nuclear power. Quote, all this talk about immediate referendums is an absolutely unequivocal ultimatum from Russia to Ukraine and the West, according to the founder of the political analyst firm R-Politik, Dmitry Medvedev, who served as Russian president between 2008 and 2012 and is now deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, backed the referendums, which he said would change the path of Russian history and allow the Kremlin more options for defense of what he said would become Russian territory. In a post on Telegram, he wrote, encroachment onto Russian territory is a crime which allows you to use all the forces of self-defense. This is why these referendums are so feared in Kiev and the West. He said further, it's equally important that after the amendments to the constitution of our state, no future leader of Russia, no official, will be able to reverse these decisions. So it sounds like they are paving the way here to say, all right, well, we're going to redo these votes, except maybe this time it's going to be not just for independence, but to join Russia. Mm-hmm. That's not what.
And it sounds like they're saying, we're redoing our constitution so that once you join, you cannot leave.
That is what that sounds like, too.
This is how that works.
And it also sounds like, okay, well, if they join us, then Ukraine is attacking Russia. And so if we've been going easy on you before,
not anymore.
We're not going easy on you now.
Not anymore.
That's at least the tough talk here in this particular document.
So Russia isn't actually annexing them in this particular scenario. That's just
True,
Western
that's
propaganda.
Yeah. That's
Russia saying, hey, look, if you have this referendum and you decide you want to be part of Russia, we'll accept you and we'll consider Ukraine to be attacking you if they attack you.
So what is that term? So if it's opposite of annex, where the bigger portion isn't taking you, the little portion is...
You're joining. I don't know.
What is that term?
I don't know. The opposite of secession, I guess.
Yeah.
You join a union.
It's the opposite of annexation. It's
joining a union. I don't know what
there
else.
must be a word for it, but I don't know what it is offhand.
Because it never happens, it seems.
Sure it does. Alaska and Hawaii did it, right? And the U.S. states did it.
Yeah, but how many 100 years ago, right?
Well, Alaska was less than 100. And
Hawaii was also the
chat room. Help me out, man. There's a word for it.
There is a word for it.
Now they know what they're getting into, and we're probably not going to see too many states being made today.
We're going to hear the other side of hopefully we'll see more independence and more secession today than more joining of unions and such. But there's more analysis on this. You can share your thoughts as well. Coming up here, this is Free Talk Live with Ian Aria, Conan. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The United Nations Secretary-General says world leaders should have no illusions about the challenges they're currently facing. Antonio Guterres was speaking at the opening session of this year's UN General Assembly in New York. He said the combined threats of conflict, particularly in Ukraine, climate change and COVID-19, are great perils facing the planet.
In the face of such perils, it is tempting to put our long-term development priorities to one side, to leave them for a sunny day. But development cannot wait. The education of our children cannot wait. Dignified jobs cannot wait. Full equality for women and girls cannot wait. Comprehensive health care, meaningful climate action, biodiversity protection, these cannot be left for tomorrow.
Also addressing the world body today, French President Emmanuel Macron, along with other Western leaders, he condemned Russia for proposing to hold a referendum in the breakaway Ukrainian regions of Donetsk and Luhansk over whether they want formally to become part of the Russian Federation.
Nous avons aujourd'hui à faire un choix.
We have today to make a simple choice between war or peace. On the 24th of February, Russia, a permanent member of the UN Security Council, undertook an act of aggression, invasion, and annexation against our collective security.
The French president met British Prime Minister Liz Truss on the fringes of the General Assembly today. She will meet US President Joe Biden there tomorrow, after she conceded there is no immediate prospect of a UK trade deal with the United States amid continuing disagreements over Northern Ireland. The governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, is facing growing questions over his decision to fly undocumented migrants from Texas to the upscale enclave of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts earlier this week. A sheriff in Texas has launched a criminal probe. Governor DeSantis, considered a possible Republican candidate in the 2024 race for the U.S. presidency, claims he operated within the law. But at the White House, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre accused him of using migrants as political pawns.
They are using people who are leaving a communist countries as a political stunt.
A major relief operation is underway in Puerto Rico after the island was left entirely without electricity by Hurricane Fiona. Supplies are due to be flown in over the next few hours. Jeannie Calderin is the founder and president of aid organization Somos Puerto Rico and says the storm was worse than Hurricane Maria, which broke records in 2017.
Hurricane Maria came with a lot of wind, and this one came with a lot of water. So a lot of people are saying they cannot believe, and they were not expecting for it to be worse than Maria.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about the potential of the Donbass regions of Ukraine to vote at the end of the week, over the weekend basically, to potentially leave Ukraine, which they already voted on in 2014, but it was ignored by the Ukrainian government and the Western world. They're going to be doing it again now, except is the actual question, we're not sure what it's going to say. Is it going to be to actually join Russia? Because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like Russia wants them to be part of Russia, so then therefore they can bring the full weight of the Russian military to bear on defending what it'll then consider its territory.
Why can't they do that anyway, though?
Well, they could, right? Like, is that just a...
Yeah,
why do they need that excuse?
Well, then it will be an actual war, which they say that it is, and I've had my doubts since day one. Mm-hmm. Was 7 months now? It's never been a war. Show me the missiles.
What is it? A military action?
It's just an intervention.
Yeah.
Well, people are dying. I don't.
Are they?
That's the claim.
Okay. Fair point. At this point, I'm not even convinced that there is a Ukraine or that there is a Russia because the media has been lying about everything from the beginning.
Absolutely. It's been my point since day one. You can't trust any of this.
I think there's probably a war.
Speaking of lying militaries, if you've ever worked or lived at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and you drank the water, you might have had some serious problems.
We were laughing, but this is horrible.
Yeah, this is awful. Cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue. If you got those things from living at Camp Lejeune, again, 1953 to 1988, you're probably entitled to compensation. They had contaminants there in the drinking water, and there might be some deadlines, though, for filings and such, so you want to get in touch with these folks as quickly as possible to find out if you or a loved one are eligible for payments. 888-918-1037 is the number. If you were at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and you've had a serious health issue, the money's already set aside. Just call this number, 888-918-1037. That's 888-918-1037.
I will say this. They at least appear to feel bad about what they did at Camp Lejeune because I'm seeing ads for this everywhere.
Well, it's not because they feel bad.
No, I know.
They got caught.
Sure.
And they're being held liable.
This is how that works. Yes, correctly.
That's
why I said they're at least given the illusion that they feel, or however I said it, they're creating.
These are legal groups. The people that are putting the ads out are not the government. The government is not.
But the government's paying for it.
Well, yeah, but they're not paying for the ads. As I understand it, these are the legal agencies that are representing the people.
But they probably have some. But that money came from the government, right?
Perhaps. I don't know. Or maybe it's the lawyers expecting to get a piece of, representing whoever it is that signs up to get these payments. I don't know how all that works, but
I don't know either. But I'm
you,
seeing ads everywhere for this.
Sure, but it's not because the government loves these people or anything like that. The government probably doesn't want these people to call these numbers or whatever.
Yeah, this is just one incident amongst hundreds.
They got caught for
that
this
are
one.
that are taking place as we speak. That the last 2 years, by the way, is going to be a prime example. 10 years. Did you take this specific vaccination back in 20?
No, they're immune.
2020.
The vaccine companies are immune from prosecution
and from being sued.
Right, that's what I mean.
Unless
lawsuit.
Comirnaty. I'm sorry. The emergency use authorization batch is immune.
They're all immune.
I don't think Comirnaty is.
All vaccines are
Can
immune.
we please not call it that?
That's what it is.
That's what they call it. Let's call it literally anything else.
We have to say what it is, but which, by the way, doesn't really exist. I don't know that there is actually a batch of this anywhere on anyone's shelf.
Well, first of all, we can't give legal advice, but from what I've heard, Conan, this is true about vaccine manufacturers across the board. Whether you're talking about
that needs to end.
Whether you're talking about the COVID vaccine or whether you're talking about mumps, rubella, whatever other vaccines you might have gotten as a kid in the 1980s or whatever, these people are all immune from. That's my understanding.
Well, the idea kind of makes sense, right? Because you get this thing to protect you from the mumps or whatever, and it affects your body for the rest of your life, and maybe 20 years later you get cancer or something like that. Yeah. Maybe it has nothing to do with the vaccine that you got 20 years prior, but if they're not legally protected, then you could just sue them.
20 years versus 2 weeks. I mean, this is something, if you're having adverse effects 2 weeks after this stupid thing. By the way, you know what? It doesn't really matter because Biden just came out and said it's all over.
He did say that. The pandemic, he said, is
over. He
also
said
COVID.
He
didn't say COVID was over. He said the pandemic was over.
He also said, watch me.
Yeah. We covered this last night. Let's get back into Ukraine, though, because Ukraine now, so again, Reuters, this is Western media's report on this. So, of course, they're going to the Ukraine side here, and they say the threat of referendums was, quote, naive blackmail, unquote, and a sign that Russia is running scared. Quote, this is what the fear of defeat looks like. The enemy is afraid and obfuscates primitively, said Andriy Yermak,
why are they
chief of
saying
staff.
that Russia's afraid here? Because they want to have a referendum?
Because they're winning.
That's the claim. The narrative from the Western media and Ukraine is that Ukraine's had this big pushback. They're pushing Russia out of the country, and so now they're going to have a vote.
By the way, you know what? I actually saw a video. Zelensky was being interviewed, like, I don't know, two weeks ago or something, on one of the mainstream medias, and he speaks clear English.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see him with his translator in every single video, this is interesting.
Well, he's a CI plant, isn't he?
Well, we know that he's a comedian actor, but who knows what he's really about? But and whether he'll be around any within the next month. I mean, they might be getting tired of him asking for so much money because he's always when he comes out, that's all he does. He asks for more money, more munitions, more support, more money. But
well, look, if Biden's
but he always has a translator. Yeah. But he speaks clear English, understandable. He's not fumbling. He's not falling over himself like Biden. So
what is the translator doing?
That's my big question: is why isn't he asking? Why is he answering questions? Why isn't he speaking in English? Because that's who he's talking to, the English world.
Oh, he's not giving a speech in Ukraine to
so
Ukrainians?
Is it some kind of, I don't know, is it a ploy to sound like he's backwards from a backwards country? Because he speaks good. Is it good English or well? Yes, good English. Yeah.
Ukraine will solve the Russian issue, said their chief of staff. The threat can only be eliminated by force. So doesn't sound like they're going to respect the Donbass votes on this one. Ukraine says it will not rest until every Russian soldier is ejected from its territory. Kyiv says it will never accept Russian control over its territory and has called on the West to supply more and better arms.
There it is.
to fight Russian forces.
So wait a minute. Let's say these people do have a fair election, and everyone recognizes that. Why I don't know why they can't do this. Get the Russian military and the Ukrainian military there, and they just oversee this election. You would think that they'd be able to do this if they're civilized as they claim. And let's say these people actually voted to join Russia, or voted for independence, or voted to stay in Ukraine. I don't believe any of these would recognize a result that wasn't the one they wanted.
Yeah, it's possible.
And Ukraine here, it sounds like they're saying, look, they can have whatever referendums they want, but we're not going to recognize it.
Yeah,
they're part of Ukraine, damn it.
How long did Brexit take to be basically finalized? Like 3 years or something? 2 or 3 years?
Is it finalized, or is it still?
More than that. No, it's done. It's a done deal.
Actually, yeah, good question. Are they actually done. Have they left?
Yeah, Brexit's done. It took like 4 or 5 years.
It took a long time after the election.
It did. Joe Biden warned in March that a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia would mean World War III. He and the NATO leaders have been careful to say they don't want NATO troops in direct conflict with Russian troops. Putin and senior Russian generals and officials, though, already cast the conflict as a broader contest with the West, which they say has sent Ukraine advanced weaponry. That's a fact, and helps guide Ukrainian forces with intelligence and training that ultimately kills Russian troops.
That also seems to be a fact.
Putin on Friday brushed off the lightning Ukrainian counteroffensive in recent weeks and cast the conflict as an attempt to prevent what he said was a Western plot to carve up and destroy Russia. Their parliament in Russia on Tuesday approved a bill to toughen punishments for a host of crimes, such as desertion, damage to military property, and insubordination if they were committed during military mobilization. And of course, we know that they're not mentioning it in this article, but we know that in Ukraine they've banned the counterparties. They banned the main pro-Russia party from even running in Ukrainian elections. And they've even banned speaking Russian in certain places.
You know what? I hate to support the big old Russian bear, but I'm telling you, man, it's
hard not to in this one.
I know.
More coming up. Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power, but there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Everything you're already doing still isn't enough? I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. When you're shopping bricks and mortar, ask for an open box. I saved a couple $100 on the computer I'm writing this on. Still brand new and under warranty. Shopping online? Before you check out that cart, open a separate browser and Google promo codes for the company you're shopping. And if you're a member, try AAA or AARP. Shopping for services? On vacation, I flossed off a crown, and the nearest dentist wanted $75 to re-cement it. When I asked, discount for cash? The duck pocketed the crisp $50 I offered. Threatened to quit. Many subscription services and publications will counteroffer. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. You can join us. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Got some international news of interest, including the latest from the Donbass region of Ukraine. Apparently, Russia is now announcing that they may be trying to take over Lugansk and Donetsk, the People's Republics, as they declared themselves back in a vote in 2014. It was never respected by the Western world.
Nope.
It was never respected by Ukraine. And now they are going back to the polls this weekend. According to RT.com, by the way, it's Ian, Aria, and Conan in the studio here tonight. We just shared with you the mainstream media, Western media story, the Reuters coverage of this, but I always like to go over to RT, and that, of course, is the official Russian propaganda channel. People in the Western, a lot of people in the European Union can't even access RT.com. It's been banned from YouTube. It's been banned from so many different places. In fact, I discovered today, as I was looking down our list, because I on my calendar was to turn back on YouTube today, because we've been we took a strike there like a month or so ago.
Yeah, we're back on YouTube today. Woohoo!
When we are back, are the haters in our chat? Conan, are you watching?
There's a couple of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So welcome back, haters. Anyway, I was looking at our Restream server, which is this third party that we use, to where we don't have to have, we've got like 8 or 10 different video platforms that we stream out to, and Restream makes it easy to do that, meaning that we just stream once to Restream, and then they handle the distribution to these other places.
It's really cool because even vMix, which is like professional grade software, is like $600 for the license or something.
You can get it for like $2, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but then you don't
Depends
get 1080 and stuff. But yeah. It only supports 3 outputs, so you can only stream to 3 places.
Right, so you kind of need to have a service like this. Now, supposedly there's software that you can download and run your own server and do this, and we may have to look into that.
Then you need a lot of bandwidth, though.
I mean, bandwidth's cheaper than it's ever been, but yes, you still don't need as much because the servers are the ones handling all the viewers. You're just streaming out to those servers. Anyway, I'm saying there is software, from what I understand, that does the job that Restream does for us, and it may be something we're going to have to look into, because as I was looking at the Restream settings to turn YouTube back on, I noticed that it said that our connection to VK was deactivated. Now, sometimes when VK, for those that don't know, is the Russian version of Facebook. It's not Facebook. It's just a site that apes Facebook. It looks a lot like Facebook, and it's very, very popular in Russia. Okay, so that's what VK is. And so it said we were disconnected from that. And I figured, oh, well, these are one of those things that happens from time to time. Sometimes when you have these third-party services, some API code gets changed, and you just have to go in and relink and reconnect, and then you're good to go. So I go in there, and I
ask you, are you sure you want to reconnect to these people, these terrorists?
No, it's worse than that.
No, it's worse than that. So I went in there, and I removed the connection because I couldn't see any way to refresh it within the existing connection. I removed the connection, and I went in to go add it again, and it's not there.
Huh.
It's like, oh, I know what they did. Yeah. I didn't even have to check, but I did check just to verify my concerns were true. I said they must have taken it down because it's a Russian website. And so I went into the help guide on, and by the way, we were streaming there last night, so this just happened. We were on VK. I went to VK, checked the VK site. But so anyway, went into the help files and found where it says they've disconnected all their Russian streaming sites, VK, OK.ru, etc. They're down from all of those to punish the Russian people. Now, they didn't say this, but that's what's happening. They're punishing the Russian people because this isn't hurting the Russian government.
No, it's not.
In fact, it's preventing. If there was somebody who was broadcasting a pro-Ukrainian stream on VK through Restream, they can no longer do that.
This is straight 1984.
Yeah,
I know that gets brought up a lot. Everyone wants to say that it's some kind of
no. In 1984,
future.
Governments did it. Here, corporations are doing it on behalf of governments, and it's completely backward, right? It's the narrative that we're being told is that but the narrative that we're being told is that the Russians are lying and they're evil and all this stuff, so they can't hear what we have to say.
If the government is running their operations through these corporations, how is it not government? Thanks, Winston, you asshole. I mean, seriously.
Okay. These are the Winstons, is what you're saying.
Winston is by the way, he was the hero of 1984. He was actually the bad guy in a lot of terms. I know everyone wants to think that the Mouse Man was the bad. Who was the guy who tortured him?
Ooh, I don't remember his name.
Goldsmith or something?
Well, that was the alter ego, the quote good guy, the subversive. That was the alter ego. I don't remember what the guy's actual name was.
Well, Winston was just following orders. He was burning history. That was his job.
Yeah, he was changing history. So that's why we're not on VK tonight. I didn't have a chance to remedy that situation. There might be a way for us to
maybe adding it manually,
RTMP it, but we maxed out on. Anyway, this is for behind the scenes stuff. But I just thought
the only thing I ever liked about Restream was that it took all of our chats and would put them in one window. But
and that's handy.
It is, but we don't even really monitor it anyways.
I mean, I do. Usually it's just not worth reading, but,
true.
But I do monitor it.
That's true.
But I sure as hell I'm not going to give Restream any more money to add more, servers. And besides, how do we know they're not going to just shut down the direct streams anyway? Like, we could set up VK as a direct stream, I think, unless they have some sort of ban list and they're like, oh, well, we know that's streaming to VK, so not going to let that happen. And that's what I didn't have a chance to set up because the computer crashed. I've been dealing with this terrible studio computer over the last 4 days. It's been hard to get anything done from a technical perspective.
Sure.
But hopefully we can get back on VK somehow. Which,
it doesn't suggest that Americans here are the good guys.
No.
If
they're censoring?
Yes. And it's important to remember that we're rare, right? The vast majority of media out here, the vast majority of YouTubers and Twitch streamers and people who are on VK coming from the U.S., they would be absolutely pro-Ukraine. Right. So
now they can't reach that audience.
No.
Of Russians. What a stupid decision on their part.
But you would expect the Russian government to be the ones who are like, "Hey, look, VK, these American streamers, you gotta axe them. We can't do this. They're corrupting our people." Instead, it's the other way around. It's backwards. It's nonsense.
As far as China and Russia are concerned, how is it not in their benefit to just let us, the West, just tear ourselves apart with our TikTok and whatnot and our monetary system and just everything we're doing is destroying ourselves. We are at the end of our golden age. I think I think Russia has just entered their golden age, by the way. This is my theory. And it's in their benefit to let us tear ourselves apart. I mean they're selling their oil at a premium right now because
and the natural gas
through China, by the way, the middleman, the new middleman. Everything that we're doing right now benefits Russia.
Sure does. Russia can't let us tear ourselves apart. We don't live in that world anymore. They need Europe and the United States to buy that natural gas and crap for them.
But they're still selling it.
I know.
But at a premium.
Yeah. But if the Europe and America is not there to buy, I understand all of that. That's exactly my point, is that Russia can't let us tear ourselves apart. They need us as customers. Otherwise, they have no golden age.
Actually, I think that China is probably more dependent on us than Russia. They make everything. They do everything. They're not selling crap to us except oil and what? Fertilizer. What else are they selling to the outside
China?
world? Russia.
Oh, Russia.
China is incredibly dependent on us. But Russia, I think they've spent the last 20 years basically getting off the grid, becoming self-sufficient.
Well, they're doing okay so far. But and I want to get into speaking of the grid, I want to get into the energy situation in Germany and in the rest of Europe as well. But first, an update from RT.com on this coming vote. NATO has now denounced the referendums, reacting to the announcement that the Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics will hold votes on joining Russia. Okay, so that's what wasn't clear before, because, again, the mainstream media, Reuters, was using the term Annex, and this would be a vote. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg on Tuesday called them illegitimate. And
so the UN is already coming out of this on the side of the United States.
NATO's different from the UN.
I thought you said the Secretary General of the UN.
No, NATO, sorry, if I did, it's NATO Secretary General, called them illegitimate and demanded more support for Ukraine from the international community. He said on Twitter, quote, "Sham referendums have no legitimacy and do not change the nature of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. A further escalation in Putin's war," calling it a further escalation. The international community must condemn this blatant violation of international law and step up support for Ukraine. So $40 billion from the U.S. isn't enough, or 50 or whatever it is.
It's over that. It's over that. And not to count all of the munitions that have been sent there.
Wow. Just pony up some more. It's not enough, according to this guy. Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics will be holding a vote this weekend, starting on September 23rd, this Friday. And the other Russian-held territories will be voting also on Friday. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan echoed the condemnations, calling the referendums, quote, "an affront to principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. We will never recognize this territory as anything other than a part of Ukraine." So it doesn't matter what the people want. Doesn't matter. They're all just pawns in this violent game. There's more coming up.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The United Nations Secretary General says world leaders should have no illusions about the challenges they're currently facing. Antonio Guterres was speaking at the opening session of this year's UN General Assembly in New York. He said the combined threats of conflict, particularly in Ukraine, climate change and COVID-19, are great perils facing the planet.
In the face of such perils, it is tempting to put our long-term development priorities to one side, to leave them for a sunny day. but development cannot wait. The education of our children cannot wait. Dignified jobs cannot wait. Full equality for women and girls cannot wait. Comprehensive health care, meaningful climate action, biodiversity protection, these cannot be left for tomorrow.
Also addressing the world body today, French President Emmanuel Macron, along with other Western leaders, he condemned Russia for proposing to hold a referendum in the breakaway Ukrainian regions of Donetsk and Luhansk over whether they want formally to become part of the Russian Federation.
Nous avons aujourd'hui à faire un choix.
We have today to make a simple choice between war or peace. On the 24th of February, Russia, a permanent member of the UN Security Council, undertook an act of aggression, invasion, and annexation against our collective security.
The French president met British Prime Minister Liz Truss on the fringes of the General Assembly today. She will meet US President Joe Biden there tomorrow, after she conceded there is no immediate prospect of a UK trade deal with the United States amid continuing disagreements over Northern Ireland. The governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, is facing growing questions over his decision to fly undocumented migrants from Texas to the upscale enclave of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts earlier this week. A sheriff in Texas has launched a criminal probe. Governor DeSantis, considered a possible Republican candidate in the 2024 race for the U.S. presidency, claims he operated within the law. But at the White House, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre accused him of using migrants as political pawns.
They are using people who are leaving a communist countries as a political stunt.
A major relief operation is underway in Puerto Rico after the island was left entirely without electricity by Hurricane Fiona. Supplies are due to be flown in over the next few hours. Jeannie Calderin is the founder and president of aid organization Somos Puerto Rico and says the storm was worse than Hurricane Maria, which broke records in 2017.
Hurricane Maria came with a lot of wind, and this one came with a lot of water. So a lot of people are saying they cannot believe, and they were not expecting for it to be worse than Maria.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. As fresh evidence emerges of possible war crimes by the Russians in Ukraine, the presidency of the European Union is calling for an international tribunal to be created to pave the way for trials once the war is over. The call from the Czech Republic, which currently holds the bloc's rotating presidency, came after the discovery of hundreds of graves in Izium, a town recently liberated by Ukrainian troops. None of this will be easy, according to Sir Howard Morrison, a UK government-appointed advisor to Ukraine and a former judge at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia.
There are various methods you can deal with international crimes. The first and foremost these days is the International Criminal Court, but it doesn't have jurisdiction over the crime of aggression in Ukraine. It does in respect of genocide, other crimes against humanity and war crimes. So people have suggested setting up a special court, a little like Nuremberg. But there are other options, for instance, Ukrainian domestic courts that have the criminal power under their criminal code. So you have to make up your mind how certain it is you're going to be able to get people actually before the court.
And he says the most important aspect now is to collect evidence on the ground for presentation before whatever body ends up judging war crimes allegations. The main news again, Western governments are condemning a Russian plan to hold a referendum in the breakaway Ukrainian regions of Donetsk and Luhansk that Moscow says will determine whether they become part of the Russian Federation. Opening the UN General Assembly, Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned of the great perils facing the planet. And a major relief operation is underway in Puerto Rico after it was left entirely without electricity by Hurricane Fiona. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Shortly after having sexual intercourse with a prostitute earlier this afternoon, local man Jacob Reynolds told reporters that he never expected the experience would bring him to new heights of emotional and spiritual fulfillment.
I was convinced that having sex with a complete stranger behind my wife's back would leave me feeling drained and empty on the inside, but my self-esteem is through the roof.
Reynolds, who said he paid $150 for a 30-minute block of time, said that his moderate expectations for the encounter were instantly surpassed by what turned out to be a deeply personal sexual communion that transported him to a new plane of emotional intimacy.
I've never felt a stronger sense of spiritual connection. When our bodies met, there was an immediate sense of familiarity and comfort that just washed over me. I think it was the most meaningful experience of my life.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
And we've heard in just the last segment of the show that Western nations, European Union, the United States, NATO, they are not going to be recognizing the upcoming votes in the Donbass region of Ukraine. They've already said it. It doesn't matter what the people of that region want.
Surprise, surprise. Sounds just like Brexit.
The NATO guy, or actually it was the U.S. Spokesbureaucrat, said they will never recognize the Donbass regions as anything other than Ukraine. So it doesn't matter if 90% of the people of those regions come out and say, we want to be part of Russia. Doesn't matter. They're not going to respect that, so they're going to continue the war. The NATO spokesperson said he wants countries, the support of countries, to double down and send more weapons and send
money,
more billions of dollars and billions of euros into Ukraine.
Oh, and freeze this winter.
That's what I wanted to get to, Conan, here, because I've got a really interesting story from The Guardian. We've talked over the last few weeks. We've shared some of the posts from social media where people will post their electric bill and show you what it was and show you what it is now, and it's going up in some cases tenfold for some people. Some people in their homes are seeing dramatic increases, but the real story isn't that it's hard to live at home because, you go up 2 or 3 times, that's going to be tough. You're going to be cutting back, no doubt about it. And some people, they're going to have to move in with their family. So you're going to see that happening. In fact, the Federal Reserve Chairman apparently said something this week here in the U.S. that likely economic conditions are going to result in distant family members coming together.
It's what they want. They want you all living in the cubicles, living with your family all in little
I don't know if family
hives.
coming together is a good thing, right? That's communities, families, friends coming together.
It could be good if you get along with them.
That's the last thing the state wants.
Good point, Arya. It might backfire when you get people actually living and talking to each other and creating a community. Exactly. Well, we're here. We are.
And if you're under a stressful circumstance too, it ain't like you're coming home for Christmas and everybody's exchanging gifts and then having fun with petting the dogs and playing tag or whatever. This is, you can barely pay the bills. You cannot survive unless you move in together and you're living 10 people in a 4-bedroom house or whatever.
Let's bring it back to the United States Depression. The birth rate actually decreased during that time. I mean, you would think that people they're not working, they're not doing anything. You think they'd be having all kinds of sex.
It'd be irresponsible.
But in actuality,
they'd be having
they weren't.
sex, sure, but
the birth rate declined significantly.
I don't know how to tell you this, but that doesn't mean they weren't having sex. It just means they weren't having babies.
Well, I was this is almost 100 years ago, 80 years ago. So I mean, why weren't they having? They didn't have protection. I mean, they're not going out and they're buying unless they're using, I don't know, they're using pig intestines.
Lambskin or whatever.
Yeah, lambskins. But I mean, what if it's because they're all living in the same shack together, 10 of them, and it's kind of hard to have sex when there's 10 of them in there?
That didn't stop people back in the day. I mean, that was just how it was,
figured it
right?
out,
I mean,
right?
You understood that your parents were, sleeping, 3 people down and they were having sex.
Okay, 80 years ago, personal protection was probably hard to come by unless you're using lambskin or pig intestines. So why did the birth rate decline?
There are all manner of having sex that don't lead to pregnancy that aren't.
I'm thinking it was because they were demoralized. And there was something in the human system that just didn't want to go out and do these things. It was better to just sit under a tree and sulk than to actually go out and be human and have a good time.
So let's talk about the economic implications of this. Continuing to have these Western nations, the European Union, the U.S., continuing to support and to funnel taxpayer dollars to Ukraine at the cost of the economy here and there in again, European Union. It's going to hurt the European Union more because they're more dependent on the Russian gas that, as you pointed out in the last hour, Conan, is still coming to the EU. It's just going around
to China.
Through China. It's going through what is it in the Middle East? There's that little path through where shipping containers or
little canal.
Through. Yeah, there's like a canal, like their equivalent of the Panama
Canal. I don't know, the Middle East Silk Road.
I'm forgetting what the name of it is.
But that's exactly it. Then it comes by tanker and ship,
it's very
rather
expensive.
than being on, in a pipeline.
Yeah. So, and of course, that's a very fought.
And by the way, this is what this is all about. This is about oil pipelines. The whole Ukrainian incident is about Ukraine owning Russian pipelines. This is what this is all about.
How so?
The pipelines going from Russia to Europe goes through Ukraine.
Yeah, but they're still fine. Russia just turned them off.
Suez Canal, by the way. That thank you for. I had just looked it up, but also one of our chatters pointed it out over at chat.freetalklive.com. So it's still a long way. They don't have to go around the Horn of Africa anymore. They can go straight through the Middle East, but it is still a lot more expensive to do it that way. Plus, you get the middlemen in China. So we've predicted already some of the fallout of this. We're seeing it happen now where electricity prices are going up. But this story here from The Guardian gets into what that actually is meaning in reality, right? Because we had said the other week when we talked about some of the bars in the UK that are seeing 6x the electricity bill, and they're saying, look, we just can't raise prices fast enough. They're going to have to close down. Well, it's not just the bars. According to this story at Kate Connolly and reporting from Berlin. Not pasta then? Germans quipped earlier this month on hearing that all of things, a toilet paper manufacturer had gone bust. Not sure what pasta has anything to do with it. But anyway, after all, while toilet paper was the second most sought after supermarket item during the height of the pandemic, pasta was the first. Oh, I see. Consumers were strictly rationed to just 1 or 2 packets of rolls to ensure that no one went without. But having boomed during the pandemic, the luxury brand Hackel from Dusseldorf, known for, quote, bringing comfort since 1928, so a nearly 100-year-old business, with its 3-ply rolls, has bombed as a result of the energy crisis. By the way, the self-imposed energy crisis is the first large German consumer goods producer to collapse because of soaring energy and raw material costs, and there's much to suggest that it will be followed by many more.
Yep.
Last week, the Munich-based IFO Institute for Economic Research slashed its prognosis for German growth, and then they go in saying they're expecting the economy to shrink 0.3% in 2023. I don't see why it'll be that small of an amount. 0.3%? That's like nothing. You can shrug that off.
Yeah. It's going to be significantly worse than that.
Yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I'm going to skip their ridiculous predictions. But, quote, the cuts to gas supplies from Russia this summer and the drastic price increases they've triggered are wreaking havoc on economic recovery following the coronavirus. They think it's going to return to normal in 2024, and then they're expecting growth. We'll see about that.
They are out of their minds.
Yeah, they're trying to be optimistic, but I don't think it's going to work out that way. The German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, is traveling to the Gulf this weekend to secure supplies of liquefied natural gas from the United Arab Emirates as Russia chokes off its supply of gas. The economy minister said, quote, the gas supply is gradually broadening and the government is permanently in talks with many countries, also with nations on the Arabian Peninsula. Paper production, according to The Guardian, is highly energy intensive. The company, in this case, Hackel, used 60,000 megawatt hours of gas and 40,000 megawatt hours of electricity every year. And the rises in
this was to make toilet paper?
That's right.
I thought Europe was all about bidets, right?
Somebody's still wiping. The rises in energy costs came so hard and fast, the company said, it was unable to pass them on in time to consumers, which is what I was saying within the last couple of weeks, is these bills we're seeing that people are getting, they're going from, 100, like a personal bill might go from 100 and something euros from 1 month to 1,000 euros in the next month. If you're a business, like this one coffee shop that went up 20x or whatever, and you get an increase like that, even if you raise your prices the next day, You're still not going to be able to make it with, I mean, you sticker shock your customers by going up from a $1 cup of coffee to $14 or 14 euro or whatever. People are going to turn around, they're going to walk right back out the door. You're not going to have the same level of business for that second month, and by the time you have barely even gotten the wheels turning on changing those prices, your next electricity bill's coming due.
Yep.
So how the
25x now?
Germany is screwed.
So how the hell are these companies that have tens of thousands of megawatt hours every single year that are having jacked up rates? They can't do it. They can't raise their prices fast enough. So what does all this mean? Well, this is just the beginning. The number here is 603-283-6160.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before PorcFest. ForkFest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the ForkFest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the ForkFest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 15th through the 18th. forkfest.party. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live, and you can join the show here. Bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian, Aria, Conan here in the studio tonight. And don't forget to go to Bitcoin.com if you're ready to start learning about cryptocurrency, which I would recommend you do before you decide to buy some cryptocurrency. You really ought to learn some of the basic concepts about decentralization and how the individual benefits when we cut out the middlemen, the bankers and the governments from the picture of money. We get away from fiat currency that they can just inflate at a moment's notice and then send it to Ukraine. They can't send your Bitcoin to Ukraine.
By the way, good year to buy, 19,000.
Below, it was earlier, below 19,000.
That's 1890. So it's a good year.
Check it out.
Wish I could buy.
Me too. But you can go to Bitcoin.com and click Get Started at the top of the page and start learning about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. And also, they got the news headlines there over at news.bitcoin.com. We're going to go to the phones here. Major Payne is on the line. Major, you're on Free Talk Live.
Ian, area, Conan, the ball-bearing man. Good to meet you.
Yes, sir.
The ball-bearing?
The ball-bearing. I prefer libertarian or the librarian.
Well, Conan the Barbarian is what I would.
There you go. I'll take it.
The ball-bearing man.
All right, what were you calling about?
Steel. They spark together when it gets cold just to warm you.
Hold on, what now?
Oh, never mind. It was a thought of my own.
What were you calling about tonight?
Well, you guys were talking about the Suez Canal and the oil shortage and whatnot. And I remember, I don't know, it was 5, 7, maybe 10 years ago. There was a long ship. It was probably a tanker. They got hung up in a curve on the Suez Canal.
Was it that long ago? Or was I thought it was like 2 years ago.
Right?
It's like a year ago, 2 years ago.
I don't know. I'm old. Things get fucked in my mind as far as how long.
Did he say?
No, I think he said things get. I don't know what he said. But
Yeah, it took him like a month to get the thing dislodged.
Things get fuzzy in his mind.
Okay, got it. So go ahead there.
Well, yeah, it took a long time to get that thing unhung, and it just proves. I mean, look at what we went through on the West Coast with the shore, California not stacking up ships, and we supposedly have a man-made, self-made supply chain issue. It's just all hoorah.
Did they ever clear out those ships, by the way, the backlog of ships on the West Coast? I never heard anything else about it. Or are they still waiting out there? Are there still dozens of cargo ships just waiting in line?
Our media is not covering it for whatever reason. They spend all their time doing other things. Orange Man Bad. That's still on. It's been 2 years now, and they're still talking Orange Man Bad.
Well, when I order stuff online now, it doesn't take 2 to 3 weeks for it to arrive now, and even Amazon Prime, it's still not 2-day delivery, but it has gotten a lot better. It's now like 3 to 4 day delivery instead of the 10-day deliveries that it was. So maybe it is improved.
By the way, Aria, always look at what warehouse it's coming from. Usually they're coming from Connecticut or New Jersey, somewhere close. They're hardly ever coming from the other side of the country.
So what else about the Suez Canal, Major? Anything else you want to share about it?
Well, I don't know what it took to dig that thing, but I know a whole lot of people died digging the Panama Canal. That was an ugly venture.
Wasn't that like a lot of yellow fever deaths?
Yes.
Yep. It was a skeeter death. Yep. That's
Skeeters.
All right, Major. Thanks for the call tonight, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's definitely Suez Canal is a very important piece of property. There's no doubt about it. A lot of money pours through there every single year. So back to the story here about Germany and companies going out of business and under threat of going out of business just simply because they can't pay the power bill. As the toilet paper company in question here in the story from The Guardian, Hackel from Dusseldorf has said they just couldn't. They had to file for bankruptcy basically because they couldn't pay their power bill by increasing their rates quick enough. The company bosses, trade union leaders, shopkeepers, and employees across the country are openly expressing their fears of a crisis in Europe's largest economy that is in danger of spiraling out of control. They call into question the apparent optimism of people like Scholz, the chancellor, who has adopted the, quote, "you'll never walk alone" line as his crisis management slogan. Economics Minister Robert Habeck has admitted, quote, the financial pressure is enormous, unquote, offering the faint hope that if we get through this winter, we have a good chance that by next summer and winter, things will be considerably more relaxed. If we get through this winter, he says. In Hanover, in northern Germany, a baker who has 35 branches and employs 430 people. His name is Eckhard Vader.
That's a hell of a bakery.
Yep. He went to, looks like a Panera Bread, right? Like they've got a lot of stores. Went to the press recently after his gas bill rose by 1,200% to 75,000 euros per month. He says, quote,
time to break out the candles.
He says, are they crazy? We will have to turn off the ovens, unquote. That's his business. You can't bake without ovens. He said, taking to the streets with about 1,000 other bakers on Wednesday who held up placards accusing politicians of, quote, steering us into the biggest crisis of all time.
Yes,
unquote.
it was
shutting down your nukes, going all solar and wind.
No, it wasn't even that. It was a stupid sanctions.
Well, I mean, it doesn't help that they can't generate their own power.
Yeah,
right?
but I mean,
this is years in the making.
But the sanctions are the direct cause, right? This is proof that sanctions were a terrible idea and they should never have been implemented. And these people are right. The politicians, the one who implemented these sanctions,
they did this.
That caused Russia to say, "Okay, you want to sanction us? We're going to sanction you."
Need to come back out, and if that doesn't work, you know what else?
Unfortunately, that's not what they're doing. What are they doing?
Well, no, it's going to happen.
They want a handout.
When people can't get their bread, because the ovens aren't running any longer, the people are going to come out.
But they want a handout. They're not ready to tar and feather the politicians. They're going to them with their hands out, saying
72 hours on an empty stomach, and it doesn't matter. The handout won't be even a consideration any longer.
The head of the Federation of German Trade Unions, Yasmin Fahimi, says she fears the consequences of so many challenges coming at once. Quote, some companies are on the edge. This risks a domino effect, which could lead to the deindustrialization of Germany, which would be a catastrophe, she told Spiegel. She called on the government to safeguard those companies that are under particular threat due to their high energy usage, quote, to ensure that they are able to keep a minimum level of their production capacity going so that when things get better, they can ramp them up again. Those who shut up shop now will never come back. We need to be clear about that. So she's saying that us big manufacturers, we need the handouts more than these little companies over here.
Because they're supplying jobs and food and the whole nine, and so they're very important to society. And if we fail, then everyone else fails, so we need handouts from society.
Many companies have done just that. They've reduced production to an absolute minimum. In the case of the ArcelorMittal Steelworks at the ports of Hamburg and Bremen, they're planning to shut down, quote, until further notice.
Yeah, how is slowing production or decreasing production going to help? You need product to sell in order to make a profit, or in order just to make ends meet.
The scenario is being repeated across Germany, hitting most of all the energy-intensive industries: steel, building materials, glass, paper, chemicals that form the backbone of the German economy. There's more coming up here.
Screwed. They're all screwed.
And this is going to have an effect.
And it's
going to
us.
have ripple effects.
Yep.
There's more coming up here, and you can join us. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. World leaders meeting at the United Nations General Assembly in New York have warned of a global food crisis. U.S. and EU officials say Russia's invasion of Ukraine is largely responsible for the situation. FSN's William Denzelo has more from UN headquarters in New York.
Speaking at the Global Food Security Summit, we heard from U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Now, he estimates that 190 million people around the world are facing acute food insecurity. He says that as a direct result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, a further 70 million people could be made acutely food insecure. Now, we heard from Charles Michel, the European Union Council President. He said this is the global topic. He said the world is facing a perfect storm when it came to food insecurity and the rising cost of living.
The U.S. Justice Department has charged dozens of people in what it says was a brazen plot to steal from government-sponsored pandemic relief programs. The suspects are accused of stealing close to $250 million. Federal prosecutors say the alleged scheme was masterminded by a nonprofit organization in the state of Minnesota, which billed the government millions of dollars for fake meals served to children who didn't exist. Andrew Luger is the U.S. attorney for the District of Minnesota.
Their goal was to make as much money for themselves as they could, while falsely claiming to feed children during the pandemic.
The defendants allegedly used the proceeds to buy luxury cars, property abroad, and to fund international travel. Justice Department officials say it was the largest fraud uncovered in any pandemic relief program. In other news, U.S. markets rose on Monday ahead of the Federal Reserve's expected interest rate rise. Investors are predicting another aggressive increase when Fed officials meet on Tuesday and Wednesday. FSN's Nick Harper reports from New York.
At least another 75 basis point increase is expected from the Fed as it tries to get a handle on rising inflation. Two similar 0.75% rate rises, decided at the last two meetings, have done little to cool the situation. It all meant on Tuesday the Dow dropped 1%, the S&P tumbled 1.1%, and the Nasdaq ended 1% lower.
And finally, the Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions of Ukraine will hold referendums on joining Russia this Friday, according to pro-Kremlin officials in charge of the occupied areas. The head of Ukraine's presidential administration called the referendums naive blackmail and suggested the announcement now was Moscow's reaction to fear of defeat. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Yep, it is Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. We're talking about potential beginnings of what they call deindustrialization in Germany and maybe other European Union countries as they are having a tough time that they've done to themselves.
Not potential. It's here.
Yeah,
it's here. It's there.
They should definitely call it, rather than deindustrialization, we screwed up and there's no way to fix this.
This is step one.
Well, there's a way to fix it.
To build back better. They're breaking it down so they can implement and bring in their new system, whatever it is.
It's too late.
The German politicians are going to get hung by the end of this.
Maybe.
Unless some savior type moves in with some new, new technology or some new energy system. They've got to. But if they can bring something in, the people will raise this person up.
You're wrong. I mean, you're half right. They don't even have to be successful, though. That was the thing we saw with Hitler. All they have to do is come along and make a bunch of promises about how they're going to fix it.
I mean, let's take it back to my original analogy, comparing it to our depression 80 years ago. How long did it take us to get out of that? They were trying all kinds of handouts. That's what the whole name of the game was, handouts, and it only lengthened the depression. When they just turn everything back on and stop being idiots and stop relying on government handouts to save them, they would have gotten out in months.
I'm no expert, but wasn't it World War II that ended it?
No, that's what they would like us to believe.
Well, I thought even the Austrian economists held that view, and not that it's a good thing, but I mean that was what ended, because suddenly there was production and stuff like that again.
I think it was just a scapegoat. I don't believe for a second that it was the building of ammunition and tanks and,
that's not
and
a productive
boats
economy,
and the whole nine.
It's not used for productive
Well, when
purposes.
you think about what it was actually being used for, to destroy other people's economies, and in the long run, no, it was absolutely not the savior of our depression. But yeah, it was a scapegoat. It was World War II was a total scapegoat as far as getting us out of the depression. No, that's not what happened. People just got tired of being in a depression for 10 years.
So there's already companies, big companies, that are filing for bankruptcy. In the case of one major toilet paper manufacturer, there are others that are...
It's hilarious to me that, after people were hoarding toilet paper during the COVID-19 pandemic,
they're out of business.
Suddenly there's one that's going out of a major manufacturer, 3-ply at that. We don't even have 3-ply in the United States, man.
Well, you're gonna have
I heard that and thought, why not just wipe with a blanket, man?
Well, that's just the thing. This is the
luxury brand.
This is the luxury brand. Now,
right, so you think they're more expensive. They probably have more room to work with as far as prices and stuff like that.
Or they just go to commie brand to one ply.
All you're going to have is the crap toilet paper.
Sandpaper,
right?
leather.
Right, the stuff you get at the courthouse. That kind of toilet paper.
Exactly. Well, this is what's going to happen is all the toilet paper companies are going to go out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And who's going to pick up the... Oh, well, we can't buy from Russia because we sanctions
use
and
the
whatnot.
money.
Let's go to the... That too, but I was
going to come to that.
But I was going to say the government brand.
But you don't want to use the money. Money's filthy.
No, it's gross. Yeah, it's really gross.
Yes.
Do not use the money for that.
Paper towels.
No, it's got cocaine on it. So I mean, you're going to get yourself a butt high.
That part of your body is too good for money.
By the way, is that steering it way off course? Is that a myth that like 90% of dollar bills have like cocaine residue on them?
Of ones, probably.
So a little more here from the story at The Guardian. Again, talking about deindustrialization, we're seeing major manufacturers shutting down, quote-unquote, until further notice. Others are reducing production to an absolute minimum. And think about what that means. If production is reduced to a minimum, then that means a shortage of those products. Those businesses, presuming they don't go out of business within the next few months, are still going to be producing products, but they're not going to be producing it at 100% of capacity. It might be 15% or 10% or whatever it is that they can do to just barely keep the lights on. That means you're going to have a tougher time finding those items at the store. That means prices are going to go up even more.
If your store is even open.
Yeah. So meanwhile, cheaper energy and production costs elsewhere, for instance, in the U.S. right now, gas is 10 times cheaper than in Germany. But that's driving some businesses to relocate their manufacturing. In the case of the hundreds of thousands of Mittelstand companies.
Hey, no, that's great. Look, if you want to bring your manufacturing to the U.S., the U.S. should be all for it, man. We can get
good luck hiring people.
No, bring in the immigrants from.
That's what they're doing.
Mexico. No, it's perfect.
They're trucking into Martha's Vineyard right as we speak.
That's immoral. But I mean, open up the borders,
but they're
right?
Not going to do that.
I know, but it could solve so many problems if they did.
Oh yeah, this is the whole great replacement. They've been talking about this for years.
But it would work.
It would, but that's not what they want. They don't want it to work.
I know.
That freedom works.
But it's so obvious that it could work. You know, they need cheap manufacturing. We have that, but we need cheap labor to go with it.
That's the
we
thing.
can get that.
We don't have cheap manufacturing because we have
unions.
OSHA,
what we do compared to what they have.
Regulations. All we have are lower costs right now. That's it.
Well, that makes the manufacturing cheaper, though.
Compared to Germany, yes.
Yeah.
Not compared to China, right?
Right.
So anyway, in the case of hundreds of thousands of these companies, which are small to medium size, often family-run concerns, and loyal to a specific location, which have been Germany's main growth engine since the Second World War, this is not an option, right? You can't relocate your coffee shop. You can't relocate your local bakery, right? You can't. A lot of businesses rely on local populations.
Yeah, well, you can go online like a lot of people have.
According to the Federation,
but you still can't send your coffee online.
You
right?
can't. You can send beans, but you can't send.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what's going to happen.
You can't send your baked goods in any meaningful sense.
So then all your servers are out of jobs.
They have to be fresh.
Well, flour. You can't. Yeah, you can't.
According to the Federation of German Industries, 90% of companies cite the level of energy and raw material costs as either a strong or existential challenge. Translation: This is a challenge to our existence. They will not be able to exist if these costs continue. In the case of ammonia, vital to agricultural industry for the production of fertilizer, producers such as BASF have reduced their production to a minimum and have been forced to buy the chemical from cheaper markets elsewhere in the world. Volker Jung, the head of the bankrupt...
Why weren't they doing that in the first place?
Hey, you know who sells you fertilizer pretty cheap? Russia.
Well, yeah, but this is a fertilizer company that's having issues getting ammonia, and they're like, well, we can't use this German company anymore. We got to go with this cheaper Chinese. Well, why the hell weren't you doing that in the first place?
I don't know, buy local. Volker Jung is the head of the toilet paper firm, Hackel, has called for a state-supported energy price cap.
There you go.
He says,
state handout.
Otherwise, we can ask the question...
So they want shortages.
Whether Germany will ever be able to afford to make paper again. Wolfgang Grob-Entrup, the head of the
I'm sad by how little people learn from history. No. I mean, they know what we know, and anyone who pays attention to economics knows that these price caps will create shortages.
And if any country learned their lesson, you'd think it would be Germany.
With hyperinflation?
Yeah, exactly. Why are they so bad at this?
Just the 20th century in general should have taught Germany a few lessons.
Wolfgang Entrup is the head of the German Chemical Association. He's warned of the risk of Germany developing new dependencies at a time when it should be looking to do the opposite. Another recent survey has shown consumer confidence to be at its lowest since the founding of the Republic of Germany in 1949. Faced with higher energy bills, households are rethinking spending from holidays to household purchases and even meals out. Businesses are doing the same, avoiding new investments and instead holding crisis meetings about how they can reduce heating in factories and offices. Increasing, this is not even cold yet. They're already freaking out over this.
I mean, it's not, but it's like mid-September at this point. It's not far off, and it's going to be pretty cold.
Bad. Increasing numbers of companies are switching their workers to short-time working mode, which they call Kurzarbeit, which was first introduced in the 1920s in response to...
Why does every German word sound so evil?
It was introduced in the 20s in response...
Industrial. It's not evil. It's rough, like metal.
It was introduced in response to the economic crisis of the Weimar Republic, and later utilized, which was the hyperinflation.
Speaking of Germany not learning their lessons, this idea was introduced right before the rise of Hitler. Maybe let's try something else.
The willingness to cling onto workers is seen as crucial if Germany stands a chance of emerging from the current crisis, but increasingly the question is being asked, how long will it be able to afford to do so? Because I'm telling you, they are not going to print their way out of this. If they think handouts are going to solve this problem, they're in for a world of hurt.
Wheelbarrows of cash for a loaf of bread.
Yep.
It's coming back.
Of course, this time they have the euro, so they're going to be able to socialize the costs over the rest of the EU, but they're all going to be doing the same thing because the electricity bills are going to be going up all over the place.
Yep.
There's more coming up. Free Talk Live. Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast, or find us on the major podcast platforms.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here at 603-283-6160. We're talking about the economic disaster that is unfolding as we speak in Germany and in other countries, especially in the European Union. But right now in the U.S., we are avoiding the bulk of it, but that doesn't mean we're gonna hold out forever.
You know that meme of that dude riding the bike and he takes a stick and he pokes it down in his spokes?
That's
and
it.
then he gets up yelling at someone else or whatever?
Ukraine.
I mean,
Damn you, Putin.
That's exactly what this is. Sanctions, European Union, jamming it in their own spokes and then getting up yelling, dude, that Putin price hike.
Human beings, this is the problem with human beings. Period. They do not learn from history ever.
Sure didn't. And they're going to repeat it, and it's going to hurt. So we were talking about that. Of course, you're welcome to weigh in here if you want. The number is 603-283-6160. Let's go to the phones here. El Conejo, I believe, is with us. El Conejo? This may not be El Conejo. I might have gotten the wrong line. Hello? Okay, no one's there. Let's try El Conejo over here. El Conejo, going once.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we have you. Go ahead, sir.
I was talking about the Great Depression. 2 points. One, there was a Great Depression in 1920 that no one remembers. It was called it was actually much worse.
It was called the what? You blanked out there for a sec. It was called the what?
It was called the Forgotten Depression.
If they even mention it, because most times they don't even talk about it. What was it, like a year and a half long or something?
Yeah, it lasted about a year, and the government did nothing. The Federal Reserve was just established in 1913, but didn't have any of the tentacles into the economy, so they didn't actually do anything to mess with the economy. But that depression was worse than the Great Depression. It only lasted about a year. But as far as the actual Great Depression, Conan's right. The World War II didn't bring us out of that. What happened was they switched a bunch of production over. So if you think about it, capital goods, which are factories and raw materials and tools, they are used to make consumer goods. If you switch all of that over to making bombs to destroy capital in another country, that reduces overall wealth across the world and trade. So that it's just basically an accounting error to think that what used to be called the gross national product increase, but that's just denominating lower capital and production.
I understand that, but when we say it ended the Depression, the whole world wasn't in a depression. The United States was, and some other Western societies was, but Germany was out of the Depression at that point.
I thought they were also in their depression, if I understand.
Germany ended the Depression well before everyone else, and it was largely because Hitler came to power and he stopped paying those debts and he militarized and he did all this other stuff. But when I say that World War II ended the Depression, I just mean that it ended it for the United States. And as far as it doesn't matter if it created a net loss of productivity worldwide. That's not what we're talking about here.
But
that's what I'm saying. Those terms are basically meaningless. That's Keynesian BS. So if people are growing victory gardens,
but it literally ended the Great Depression, though. So it's not meaningless to say that.
Did it end the Great Depression? I mean, that's what
it is meaningless because the meaning of the words are meaningless. They don't actually mean wealth increased.
I didn't say that wealth increased.
Well, that's what matters. It doesn't matter if the gross national product increased when it's denominated in dollars to buy less quality goods and less goods overall. Even if the actual average number of dollars in people's pockets is increasing, if it doesn't buy as much, it doesn't really mean anything of substance. That's Keynesianism. It's meaningless sophistry, basically.
Except people were suddenly working and they had food again. So no, it's not meaningless at all. These things mattered.
They had food because they're growing victory gardens and having rations of powdered milk.
And why were they suddenly growing victory gardens?
Because they were poor, because they were paying for war.
It had nothing to do with wanting victory in some crisis that was unfolding throughout the world that most people, whether terminology matters or not, would characterize as World War II, right?
Well, we came out of World War II as basically the only country in the world that could export and produce goods for the rest of the world. So it wasn't the production, the war efforts, is basically destroying the rest of the world's productive capacity. Well,
I'm not saying World War II was a good thing, right? And no one here has ever made that claim. But as far as how history unfolded, I believe it's historically certain that World War II ended the American Depression, or that the involvement of the United States ended the American Depression.
I'm agreeing with both of you because yes, World War II did in fact was the point in time when the Great Depression was ended, but as our caller has brought up, it was because we became the power players. We actually were selling all of our goods to everyone else in the world, and it also got people working again, creating bombs,
right,
and tanks.
And I'm not saying any of that's good, but it's a fact that put an end to the Depression once people were out there working and selling goods.
But it's not
productive.
Not only is it
not good, it's not even productive.
Yeah,
it's anti-productive.
They were literally creating goods and selling them and bringing wealth to the United States. I don't care if it decimated the entire world. I don't care if only the United States survived it. That's not the point. The point is the United States stopped being in a depression.
Yeah, I think the problem we're having here is whether it was a good ending to the Depression, because it wasn't a good ending.
Right, I'm not saying it was.
It actually, when we became the power players, we also became the oppressors of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I say we as in the U.S. Because we were building bombs that were actually destroying capital in order to sell more capital to the rest of the world, which is sad.
And they were misallocating resources by shifting all of the car manufacturer lines over to airplanes and tanks and other stuff that was basically not productive. But besides that, I'll go back to the forgotten Depression of 1920. The government did nothing. There was no war, and it ended in a year. But also, there's basically no modern economist that credits World War II with bringing us out of the Great Depression anymore. Not even Keynesians, which are more like MMT people.
Isn't it true, El Conejo, that it was basically the federal government that started the Great Depression? I just don't remember the exact economic circumstances. Was it the Federal Reserve and their policy? How did that get rolling?
Yeah, basically the Federal Reserve printed so much money that they created a big bubble in the stock market, which eventually popped. And that totally destroyed all the price mechanisms, basically. basically, and then they kept doing price controls and all sorts of things that prolonged it in government work programs. So it basically prevented us from having a very short, painful recovery, like the Forgotten Depression, and made it into a very, very long, painful recovery that happened despite them eventually.
Do you think that we're going to see that happening again in the United States today?
This economy is so screwed up. I have no idea what to expect.
I'm going to say the historians are going to not talk about the 2007-2008 recession in this country the same way that they didn't talk about the 20s.
You think this
depression.
is going to dwarf it? You think this
it's going to be bad. It's got caveman days coming, I'm telling you.
Well, there's a lot of wealth to sort of coast on now by comparison, though, right? Like
That's true.
Victory gardens are coming back.
I've got one.
I would encourage people. I would encourage people to look up the Forgotten Depression at Mises.org, or maybe search the Tom Woods podcast episodes for World War II economic recovery or the Forgotten Depression, just to kind of get a different perspective on what's happening and what should be done.
All right, El Conejo, anything else you want to share tonight? Appreciate the info.
No, thanks, guys.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah,
tonight.
what you should do is you should move out of the cities, go out to the country. I mean, even here in Keene, 23,000 people population might be a little much, but yeah, move out to the country and start your victory garden because it's coming, man. It's coming.
I tend to think you're right, man. It's sad, but I don't see how worldwide economies recover from this.
Well, I mean,
they made a mess.
We as humans will survive.
Yes.
But it's going to be a hard 10 years. I think it's going to be a whole decade, just like the Great Depression, of us recovering. There's going to be the breadlines are coming back. People just out on the street, not having sex anymore, making babies because they just demoralized.
Oh, speaking of breadlines, remember the lines outside of grocery stores and Walmart
for
during
toilet
COVID?
paper.
Yeah,
for toilet
so
paper.
we've already had the lines. That you're just saying they're going to come back worse.
Yeah, but because those weren't for supply decrease or lack of supplies, those were just companies being stupid and abiding COVID measures.
Well, true, they
or
were
whatever.
restricting the number of people in the stores, but it still looked bad.
It did.
Right?
And I say
we're still waiting hours.
I'm
to go
saying
shopping.
it's going to be even worse for us, but I think that some third world countries are going to. I mean, we're just going to be breadlines and sitting outside on the on our tree sulking. Some third world countries, starvation, famine. There's going to be just hundreds of thousands, millions of deaths.
Well, if you can't work, you're not buying anything, and a lot of people are going to be out of jobs.
Yeah.
It's a dire prediction, Conan.
So there's more coming up here in moments.
History. It's history.
I know.
You can join the show. We got time for you. 603-283-6160. And coming up, we'll go in a different direction. We'll talk about fan baiting.
Hollywood, I hate you.
It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. World leaders meeting at the United Nations General Assembly in New York have warned of a global food crisis. U.S. and EU officials say Russia's invasion of Ukraine is largely responsible for the situation. FSN's William Denzelo has more from UN headquarters in New York.
Speaking at the Global Food Security Summit, we heard from US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Now, he estimates that 190 million people around the world are facing acute food insecurity. He says that as a direct result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, a further 70 million people could be made acutely food insecure. Now, we heard from Charles Michel, the European Union Council President. He said this is the global topic. He said the world is facing a perfect storm when it came to food insecurity and the rising cost of living.
The U.S. Justice Department has charged dozens of people in what it says was a brazen plot to steal from government-sponsored pandemic relief programs. The suspects are accused of stealing close to $250 million. Federal prosecutors say the alleged scheme was masterminded by a nonprofit organization in the state of Minnesota, which billed the government millions of dollars for fake meals served to children who didn't exist. Andrew Luger is the U.S. Attorney for the District of Minnesota.
Their goal was to make as much money for themselves as they could while falsely claiming to feed children during the pandemic.
The defendants allegedly used the proceeds to buy luxury cars, property abroad, and to fund international travel. Justice Department officials say it was the largest fraud uncovered in any pandemic relief program. In other news, U.S. markets rose on Monday ahead of the Federal Reserve's expected interest rate rise. Investors are predicting another aggressive increase when Fed officials meet on Tuesday and Wednesday. FSN's Nick Harper reports from New York.
At least another 75 basis point increase is expected from the Fed as it tries to get a handle on rising inflation. Two similar 0.75% rate rises decided at the last two meetings have done little to cool the situation. It all meant on Tuesday the Dow dropped 1%, the S&P tumbled 1.1%, and the Nasdaq ended 1% lower.
And finally, the Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions of Ukraine will hold referendums on joining Russia this Friday, according to pro-Kremlin officials in charge of the occupied areas. The head of Ukraine's presidential administration called the referendums naive blackmail and suggested the announcement now was Moscow's reaction to fear of defeat. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. As fresh evidence emerges of possible war crimes by the Russians in Ukraine, the presidency of the European Union is calling for an international tribunal to be created to pave the way for trials once the war is over. The call from the Czech Republic, which currently holds the bloc's rotating presidency, came after the discovery of hundreds of graves in Izium, a town recently liberated by Ukrainian troops. None of this will be easy, according to Sir Howard Morrison, a UK government-appointed advisor to Ukraine and a former judge at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia.
There are various methods you can deal with international crimes. The first and foremost these days is the International Criminal Court, but it doesn't have jurisdiction over the crime of aggression in Ukraine. It does in respect of genocide, other crimes against humanity and war crimes. So people have suggested setting up a special court, I suppose a little like Nuremberg. But there are other options, for instance, Ukrainian domestic courts that have the criminal power under their criminal code. So you have to make up your mind how certain it is you're going to be able to get people actually before the court.
And he says the most important aspect now is to collect evidence on the ground for presentation before whatever body ends up judging war crimes allegations. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. World leaders at the UN's General Assembly warn of a global food crisis, with U.S. and EU officials blaming Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The U.S. Justice Department charges dozens in what it says was a brazen plot to steal from government-sponsored pandemic relief programs. And U.S. markets rise ahead of the Federal Reserve's expected interest rate rise later this week. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer.
Federal authorities are currently on high alert in Washington, D.C., following reports that hundreds of crazed sociopaths infiltrated the congressional chambers this morning. Mary Canley, a Capitol employee who managed to escape the House chambers, described the troubling scene to reporters.
I saw all of them. About 400 to 500 completely deranged people just rambling on about guns, the military, and money.
Investigators say the lunatics, many of whom are believed to suffer from severe personality disorders, have locked themselves in the chambers for hours now, with no clear purpose or reasoning.
I looked at one of them right in the eyes, and it was like he was empty on the inside, devoid of any emotion or feeling. It was horrifying. It's only a matter of time before they do something that really hurts someone.
We believe these men to be manipulative and extremely dangerous. Luckily, they are also very disorganized, and there is a chance they may never be able to ever take any action at all. For more on this developing story, keep checking theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join the show here and bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. We're kicking off here the third hour, and the phones are open for you. We're going to shift gears a little bit, and Conan wants to talk about fan baiting. We've been talking about some pretty serious issues here tonight, but now you want to shift to Hollywood
This
stuff.
is serious, Ian.
Oh, yeah?
This is what I do in my spare time.
Fan baiting?
No, watching Hollywood crap.
All right, we'll get into it. Coming up here in a bit, it's Ian. I almost called you Bonnie.
It happens.
And Conan. We're going to go to your phone calls. All of a sudden, it's hour number 3.
This is what happens.
At least they didn't wait until the final segment.
All of a sudden,
people stop calling in the last 10 minutes. All of you.
Everybody is on the phones now. So we're going to them. First up, we have someone claiming to be President Joe Biden on the line, calling us from the White House. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hi, folks. This is President Joe Biden. There's been a lot of malarkey lately. People saying I'm not physically fit enough for the job. And I just want to say, you see me on that bike, and you know I am a young, virile young man, and all I can say to my
you sound like an old woman.
all I can say to my haters out there who don't understand is watch me.
Yes.
He's got it down.
Joe, is the pandemic over? Is it finally over, man? Can I go back to normal?
Listen, man, you know, you wear the mask, you don't wear the mask. We're kind of done with that whole thing, but the virus is deadly. But let me just say, I need to say this: that if you saw what Jill and I do under the sheets, you would not be doubting my youthful virility.
Joe, tell me one more thing. What the hell is wrong with your kid, man? What is wrong with Hunter?
Listen, Hunter is an artist. He's an artist. He's this generation's Picasso. Okay?
Wow.
All right, well.
He's good. I mean, he doesn't sound anything like Joe Biden, but he's got the
talking points.
He's got the Bidenisms or whatever down, the things that he says.
All right, well, and one more, third question. Yeah. Taiwan. Joe, what's going on with Taiwan? Are we going to defend them or not?
Listen, let me tell you, Taiwan, their cuisine, it's great cuisine.
Thanks for the call, man. It was a good one. Like normally the callers we get that are trying to do voices, we don't get very many of them these days, and they usually they can't hold it together. He held it together.
Yeah, talking points were good, voice not so good.
No, the voice was way off, but the mannerisms were good.
I'm going to give him an 8 just for the effort and mannerisms.
6.
I'm between the two of you. I'm going with 7.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. We're going on here, though. We've got, let's see, who do we have here? This is Good Cops and Unicorns calling from Alaska. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hello. Thank you. So about a month ago, you guys had the story about that jail in southern Indiana that it was, I'm a podcast listener, so I don't know if you've done any more on that since. But
no, I have not heard anything about it. You're referring to the jail where one of the jail guards snuck a key to the female block to a couple of the inmates.
Mm-hmm.
And they then proceeded to go into the female block and then proceeded to commence raping and pillaging of the female block. And they were not stopped for some number of hours, apparently. And this
Jesus
was also
Christ!
the same jail where it turns out there's some TLC show that does a jail. It's not the Scared Straight series. It's a different one. It's another jail television reality series. It's also filmed at this jail.
60 Days In or something. I think
like
it's
that.
called.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, just accidental YouTube algorithm. I sort of went down a rabbit hole and found an activist there who has a YouTube channel, and it is the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because it's just amazing how distorted the story that we all hear is from the reality. But to summarize, the sheriff's department and the local political machine there has been siphoning so much money out of that system that they basically had no money left to run the jail, and they had one guy who was apparently trying to do 16 different people's jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in that pod of the 2 inmates who got out. And he was in there and he was doing actual medical treatment, apparently.
Okay.
And then they snuck out behind him, and the people that were supposed to be 2 people in the, whatever their little office with all the cameras is, either one person was in there and sleeping, or who knows, or maybe nobody was in there. So he was by himself in this pod with 40 odd inmates. And of course, some of those people actually deserve to be in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole story about him buying the key, anyway, you can watch an interrogation video and see the guy who's the so-called star of that actual show you were just mentioning.
Yep.
He's the one who went inside, and he is, it's just unreal the way they threaten and coerce this young kid into admitting that he sold the key, etc. And
hold on. So just to clarify, you're saying that the jail guard they had on duty didn't sell or give the key to the inmates, that they somehow snuck out of their cell block without his knowledge and then somehow got into the female cell block? How did that happen?
Apparently, one of the COs that was supposed to be in that watch room, the office or whatever, had left their keys hanging on a hook, and they got those keys and gained access to the other pods.
Wow, it's amazing to me. I mean, it
sounds like a movie.
It sounds unbelievable because having been in jail myself for
you need
for
more
activism,
than just a key to open one of these doors.
Usually, but that's the thing. Maybe this is an old facility. Maybe it doesn't have the newfangled buzzing, magnetic locks that are controlled by the control room. Maybe you really can just pop a door with a key or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's this giant warehouse for humans, and I don't exactly know how it all works, but it's I assume it's an older one, but it sounds like it's a very large jail.
But you're saying this guy didn't do what they were saying. The jail guard didn't do what they were saying that he did.
I think that's absolutely true. That and that they are throwing him under the bus, and this kid happens to be the one good apple that snuck through. He's actually, has morals and ethics and stuff like that, and they are trying to bury him under the jail.
Damn. Thanks for the update on that.
really
Do you remember what the jail
disturbing,
was? Do you remember what the jail was called? Which county or whatever?
I believe it's Clark County, Indiana.
Yeah,
that's a messed up story. I haven't heard anything about it.
I know, and that's what it was. Like I say, algorithms just sort of took me there because of the types of videos I watch, but it just blew me away, and I started watching the interrogation videos of that guy, and then reading a little bit of what I could find. Can I plug a YouTube channel? I have no affiliation or anything, but where you can actually see the interrogation of this young man and read a little bit about. It's called For Public Safety. And that guy, apparently, what I gather is he's one of these people that got wrong door raided last year, I believe, and sort of in his journey of doing research, trying to find out, hey, where do I get these documents? I want to see what happened here, and he was just stonewalled so that, he actually started getting active, and he's now documenting just how messed up that system
CBS News, Night of Terror. 28 female inmates at Indiana jail allege sexual assault by male prisoners after guard sold key cells.
But there's an update, too. Thank you for the call. We'll get an update on this in a moment here. This is Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Gold and silver. You can own the most stable assets in recorded history with BullionMax.com. Buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals shipped fully insured direct to your home. Free Talk Live can get you their silver starter kit at employee pricing. Just go to BullionMax.com/FTL. It includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products. This offer is limited to 1 per household, so get yours now. Go to BullionMax.com/FTL.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to MyMagicMud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. MyMagicMud.com, FTL20.
Don't worry about things you can't control. Isn't that what they always say? But it's about impossible to avoid worrying about what's going on these days. The government has used the war on guns, the war on drugs, and the war on terrorism to tear our Bill of Rights to shreds. But you can fight back. The 10th Amendment Center has proven it, racking up major victories. For example, when the U.S. government claimed authority in the NDAA to have the military kidnap and detain Americans without trial, the nullifiers got a law passed in California, declaring the state's refusal to ever participate in any such thing. Their latest project is offnow.org, nullifying the National Security Agency. They've already gotten model legislation introduced in California, Arizona, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Kansas, meant to limit the power of the NSA to spy on Americans in those states. We'd be fools to wait around for the U.S. Congress or courts to roll back Big Brother. Our best chance is nullification and interposition on the state level. Go to offnow.org, print out that model legislation, and get to work nullifying the NSA. The hero Edward Snowden has risked everything to give us this chance. Let's take it. Offnow.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
I want to say thanks to Clamoring, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS program. Clamoring contributing to AMPS the amount of $5 a month. That's a silver level. It's all we ask for. We appreciate the assistance. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. It's a way for you to directly support what we do here on Free Talk Live. So if you want to join Clamoring, just go to amps.freetalklive.com. That'll take you right over to our Patreon page where you can get signed up and you can help us out. We certainly appreciate it, and thank you, Clamoring, for your support at amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. Conan, you and I were digging around a little bit here looking at the news regarding this, or any updates regarding the Clark County Jail, where there are lawsuits that have been filed
by the 28 inmate women who were sexually abused.
So they say. And maybe they were. I don't know. It's hard to know what the truth is in this circumstance because, well, you can't really trust the sheriff who runs the jail, right? And you can't really trust, some of these inmates either because apparently one woman has now come out, and this is a story published within the last week coming from WAVE3.com. Several women say they've been assaulted in the Clark County Jail back in October. They filed a lawsuit against the county sheriff, Jamie Noel, and other officers, which claims that a former jail officer gave male inmates a key that allowed them to get inside the female inmates' housing pod. Which
sold the key.
Claims. Right. It didn't say that here in this article, but it did say that in other stories. But in a video,
I don't believe that from the beginning because that's so obviously going to get traced back to him and get him charged and fired and all manner of other things.
Or you just turn the cameras off.
But they're going to know that someone gave this guy the key, and if he's the only guard working, as he claims,
but you can't trust criminals. They're going to lie, right? That's what they do by nature.
It doesn't matter if they lie. They very clearly had the key, and there's only one person they could have gotten the key from.
Aria. Epstein didn't hang himself. I'm sorry. These things happen, or they don't happen.
I know. I don't think you're paying attention to what I'm saying here, which is just that he's the only guy there, right? This is why I don't believe the narrative.
Well, there were two security guards guarding Epstein, allegedly.
So are you saying you believe that
they turned the cameras off?
So you're saying you believe that this guy sold the inmates his key?
I'm saying all they have to do to get away is to turn the cameras off. And they can do anything they want.
I know they can, but there's still 28 women here who are going to testify that these men were in their cell, and they're probably going to have some sort of evidence being able to prove that these two men were in their cell overnight.
Well, if they got raped, then they should have
some
evidence.
They have evidence. Exactly. They've had a whole month or almost a month to get DNA.
But that doesn't
so
mean
it's demonstrable that these two men were in their cells, right? There's no way this guard who provided them with this key, allegedly, could have thought that he could somehow get away with this.
Unless
he's an idiot. Well, you know when it comes to cops. Sorry, cops out there, the good ones, the good apples out there.
True.
They do tend to hire cops with low IQ. So I mean, this is
and a lot of COs. They couldn't become cops, so they got the job as a CO. So it's like these are the guys who couldn't be cops.
Yep. The lowest of the low.
But that said, here's what this person is saying now. According to WAVE3, a video posted by the sheriff is now showing a female inmate saying she was pressured to lie. The sheriff now has a website dedicated to quote what he calls the facts, which of course is just his side of the story.
That's like Ukraine saying, get the facts about this war from us.
He updates it with pictures and videos of what he says actually happened on the night of the incident, and now he's posted what he calls a bombshell. Noah claims the video shows an interview with a woman who was in jail on the night of the incident. She claims she was told to lie. The woman said, quote, she's telling me not to talk to nobody, not even nobody in the pod, she said. Former jail officer David Lowe, the one accused of selling keys to the male inmates, worked at the jail before he was arrested. That's when the female inmates say they were harassed, assaulted, and raped. But the female inmate being interviewed by the sheriff's office says she was told several women had filed major lawsuits against the jail and that everyone should stick to the story. Quote, she wanted me to tell them that some guy pushed me down, threatened me, and I started hyperventilating, and he left when I started hyperventilating, and that I'm having nightmares from this, I can't sleep and have headaches and all, the woman said.
So what did the sheriff's office offer her to get her to say this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let her out early.
Because I have no doubt that many of the 28 women here are lying. You know, of course they are. Some of them are.
They see this as their ticket out, right?
Or to be wealthy as hell when they do get out. I don't know. No one's got pure motives here.
Nope.
But the sheriff certainly does not either.
Yeah, well, all right. At least two of these 28 were raped.
How do we
Show me the DNA. You know how to do it.
Dude, I am never in my life will I demand a rape victim show me the DNA evidence. That's so horrific, Conan. What do you want her to do? Pop out and...
Hold on. Here's the thing.
They do rape DNA checks all the time.
But not in jail, I bet you, Conan. Like, it's one thing. If you get raped on the outside, you can just go to the hospital. I know it's not easy for someone to do this necessarily, but you could, without restriction, go to the hospital, have a rape kit done, and have the evidence. Inside of jail...
If you're a victim... Wouldn't you be asking for this?
You might be, but inside a jail, they could just say, yeah, we'll get to you as soon as we can. And then you just sit there for 3 days while they do nothing.
But this sheriff, who is also being blamed for not providing a safe environment, he would be on it in a second. He would be on it within the hour. Get those people checked.
No,
not if
wouldn't.
He knew they had been.
Not if it was his fault for not putting enough staff members on at the time.
They blamed him. He is being blamed. That's why he started this website.
So why would he be in a hurry to prove that what they were saying is true?
Because his name is on the line.
So he's proving them right that his name is trash.
He doesn't want them to be able to prove this case. His name is on the line. That's why.
If he wants to clear his name, he would say you need to get a rape test.
Why would that clear his name?
Because it would prove whether or not it even happened.
They're not accusing him of rape. If the rapes did happen,
he would want to clear his name by saying they didn't happen. If he knew that they didn't really happen.
But that's the thing. If they did happen, he doesn't want the evidence to get out about it, right? Because then that's proof of what these women are saying is true.
I don't think anyone is disputing that two men invaded their cell and raped some of them.
I think that is being disputed.
I think it's being disputed.
I thought it was being disputed that it was 28 women, but some of them at least.
Most of them claimed microaggressions. They said they saw male inmates that were showing their genitalia. That was it.
So the rumor at the time, even when we were first talking about this story, is that some of the women wanted these men in their cells.
They've probably been in jail for a while. I mean,
right. So there's a little bit more here. So she claims that this is not true. She was told what to say by her fellow female inmates who were probably threatening her.
So we already know she'll lie and say what people tell her to say. So why should I believe her now?
So why wouldn't she lie for the sheriff? So she says, according to the detective, just to be clear, though, none of that happened, correct? And the woman said none of that happened. But the inmate took it a step further. She claimed none of the assaults ever happened. Quote, when all the men did leave the pod, nobody ever said anything that I was raped, I was sexually assaulted, I was beaten up, I was forced to do this, the detective asked. And she said, nope, none of that started until they said they got caught. When Lowe got arrested and they got busted, that's when all that came up, she said. So she's saying the whole thing is BS. Further, she says the male and female inmates were making plans for the next time that they were going to have a little visit. So what's the real story here? You decide. More coming up here. It is Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. World leaders meeting at the United Nations General Assembly in New York have warned of a global food crisis. U.S. and EU officials say Russia's invasion of Ukraine is largely responsible for the situation. FSN's William Denzelo has more from UN headquarters in New York.
Speaking at the Global Food Security Summit, we heard from US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Now, he estimates that 190 million people around the world are facing acute food insecurity. He says that as a direct result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, a further 70 million people could be made acutely food insecure. Now, we heard from Charles Michel, the European Union Council President. He said this is the global topic. He said the world is facing a perfect storm when it came to food insecurity and the rising cost of living.
The U.S. Justice Department has charged dozens of people in what it says was a brazen plot to steal from government-sponsored pandemic relief programs. The suspects are accused of stealing close to $250 million. Federal prosecutors say the alleged scheme was masterminded by a nonprofit organization in the state of Minnesota, which billed the government millions of dollars for fake meals served to children who didn't exist. Andrew Luger is the U.S. Attorney for the District of Minnesota.
Their goal was to make as much money for themselves as they could while falsely claiming to feed children during the pandemic.
The defendants allegedly used the proceeds to buy luxury cars, property abroad, and to fund international travel. Justice Department officials say it was the largest fraud uncovered in any pandemic relief program. In other news, U.S. markets rose on Monday ahead of the Federal Reserve's expected interest rate rise. Investors are predicting another aggressive increase when Fed officials meet on Tuesday and Wednesday. FSN's Nick Harper reports from New York.
At least another 75 basis point increase is expected from the Fed as it tries to get a handle on rising inflation. Two similar 0.75% rate rises decided at the last two meetings have done little to cool the situation. It all meant on Tuesday the Dow dropped 1%, the S&P tumbled 1.1%, and the Nasdaq ended 1% lower.
And finally, the Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions of Ukraine will hold referendums on joining Russia this Friday, according to pro-Kremlin officials in charge of the occupied areas. The head of Ukraine's presidential administration called the referendums naive blackmail and suggested the announcement now was Moscow's reaction to fear of defeat. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. Number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight, it's Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
We're going to get back to your phone calls and thoughts, but I did find the website from the Clark County Sheriff.
This is a rabbit hole.
In Indiana. Yeah, it is. Who knows what the truth is here, but if you want to get his side of the story, which tells, again, their side of it. It gets into they locked down the jail, of course, and tried to find the keys that were sold. He doesn't, by the way. He's still throwing his guy under the bus. This David Lowe, the corrections officer.
Well, he's got to. Otherwise, they're like, hey, actually, no, that doesn't make any sense. Why would he do that? If he could instead say, look, guys, we're just not getting enough money. We just need more money to the correctional institute. I'm sorry.
He'll probably do that.
I know, but why isn't he? He'd be up there, guys. I'm sorry. He was the only person on staff. The inmates took his keys. It's terrible.
No, apparently he's saying that the bribe was real. He's saying the $1,000 bribe.
It doesn't make any sense.
The guy, maybe he's a dumbass. I don't know.
He's scapegoating.
I know, but he could scapegoat the lack of money.
Well, he can still do that. He can say, look,
he can do both.
We need more money.
Throw this guy under the bus and ask for more money.
We need more staff. Because if it's true that this corrections officer, David Lowe, really did take $1,000 bribe to give some inmates access to some keys.
Nothing.
It's right. Well, that's the thing. It's on a corrections officer's budget, though, or salary. It might actually be significant.
That might be a quarter of the month, a whole month.
If he's making $16,000
it may be like 2 weeks of pay or something like that. But
but for free,
he's probably going to end up. There's no way he thought he was going to get away with this.
Ari, you brought up a really good point. That how did he think he was going to get away with this? Unless he's an idiot.
Yeah, he must be a dumbass. I don't know. Who knows? But then again, his side of the story is different.
That stupid?
Well, look at all the people in jail. Most of them are low IQ idiots.
Well, but remember, his side of the story is different, right? So our caller that brought this whole story up said the interview with this David Lowe says that he didn't sell the key and that it was just taken from behind his back, basically. So who knows? The sheriff, though, is saying that the key was sold. So the sheriff is not backing his guy. Anyway, the website is clarkfacts.com. If you want to read the sheriff's side of the story in that case, they do have some video footage, including the interview.
I'm gonna go home tonight and buy clarktruth.com. I'm gonna do it right now.
Clark Strong.
All right, so I want to go back to the phones here. We got Vondra on the line. She's in California. Vondra, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hi. I have a real sustainable solution to homelessness that the politicians are ignoring me. Like Bruce's office, Bass. It's going to bleed over to help mitigate climate change as well. I've done research for a year. Okay.
All right, let's hear it. What's the solution?
Okay.
This is gonna save everything. This is gonna be the end of the energy crisis. I'm ready. I'm ready. Do it.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Horsepower, biomass, electricity, and heat production ranches.
We don't have enough horses.
Yes, they're going to slaughter. 37,000 horses at least are going to slaughter. It's down, but a horse comes off the racetrack, it goes to slaughter. We need to build these biomass production ranches like Elon Musk could help. We need those kind of people to help.
Hold up. So let me see if I'm following what you're saying. There's 37,000 horses going to slaughter. Instead of slaughtering them, you're saying put them to work generating electricity on a ranch?
Right. Finland is already doing it.
What do they do?
Look.
It sounds like slavery.
What are they walking on a treadmill?
No. Listen. Fortum Horsepower, Finnish energy company in Finland. The manure and bedding of only 3 horses provide heat and electricity for a single-family home for a year. They're running horse shows off of this kind of power, and they're also contributing to their own electric grid.
Why don't they just wait? Stop! Why don't they just do cows? Why aren't they collecting cow manure, which we have an abundance of, and they're claiming those cow farts are destroying the environment?
Well, I mean, it sounds like there may actually be a company out there that is utilizing horses to some degree to generate power, and I mean, cows don't do that.
But horses have to eat too.
Exactly. Look. This is how it goes. This is how it works. Okay. Fortum Horsepower in Finland. They're already doing this technology. So what we need to do is we need to build horsepower ranches and plants for processing the manure and the wood chip bedding.
How is this going to help the homeless, though?
Okay. At the same time, you build home communities on these ranches.
Out of manure?
You have the homeless. No. You have the homeless who would live on these ranches and work. There will be communities. There'll be nice ranches. Ideal.
But what if the homeless just want to drink?
Well, don't we all?
Yeah.
No.
Wait.
No, I want to be productive.
It doesn't make sense. When you take all of the food that those horses are consuming, you could just feed to the homeless.
Well, look up this Finnish energy company first, because it sounds like they found a way to make it work.
They do. Finland is already doing it.
It's horse manure, according to Euronews.
And wood chip bedding. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Horse manure and wood chip bedding in a biomass production plant.
Oh,
So
that's
you
where
have
the
these
biomass
beautiful
part comes
ranches.
in. Okay.
Wait, then you have the beautiful ranches, okay? You have the homeless without the mental illness. We would produce electricity and heat, electricity for our
Hold on. What
What
part of this makes the mental illnesses that the homeless are notorious for go away? What part of this treats that?
Okay, now you have those who are severely mentally ill and those who are not. So we become producers, okay, of biomass energy production. So then we would take from the state and give to the federal government the money to reopen some of these homeless mental institutions.
Why do you have to get the federal government involved in this?
Well, because the states can't get together. Everybody's doing everything else.
What's the other word for cow manure? Because this sounds like that.
I can't tell if we're being trolled or not. Are we being trolled?
I think she's for real. I think she's for real. You really believe this?
It is not. Go to Fortum Horsepower in Finland.
I agree with you that people are trying to do this, but it doesn't make any sense.
Yes, it does. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't make any sense.
I'm a farmer. This doesn't make any sense.
Who's going to pay for this? Who's going to pay to set up these horse farms?
Okay, so what we need are investors to begin with. Like Elon Musk. He needs something to do with
Where does he get his money? Where does he get his money? He gets his money from the taxpayer.
How much taxpayers went for people going on a bus? Huh? How much are we busing people or illegal immigrants?
Let me ask you this. Let's say you get investors. Vondra, let's say you get the investors, okay? And if you can do this with investors, great, right? Like if it doesn't take government money to set this up,
investors will never do it because it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
We need a prototype ranch in California. The prototype, the one prototype ranch, okay?
Fine.
We need people on board who are geniuses at this. I know where we need to go based on where Finland is going, based on the technology.
Here, I've got questions, Vondra. Listen. All right, so I got questions.
Alrighty.
Let's say you can get your investors just for the prototype, right? You don't have to go wide. You don't have to go crazy and have 30 ranches or whatever. Just one ranch, prototype ranch for the horsepower manure thing. All right, so you got your investors on board. How are you going to convince homeless people who, not all of them, but a lot of them just want to lay around and get high all day long? How are you going to convince them that they should go work on this ranch?
Okay, let me tell you this. Let's take some vets, some homeless vets. Let's take some people who, even from COVID-19, have been kicked out of their place and really want to do. I know people like this. When I was in film
But there's a
school
job everywhere right now.
degree,
Why are they going to want to go on a ranch when they can just go down to any place they want to work and get a job?
And not work on a ranch, which is hard.
Yeah.
It's not. With horses, this is not hard. We're not talking about hard work. We're talking about mentally.
Shoveling manure is hard work.
No, they don't have to shovel
What do
manure.
you do? Wait, hold on. What do you do for a living?
Do you know what happens in a bad
Shoveling manure is hard.
Yes, it is. But there are other things on this biomass production ranch. Are you even familiar with horses?
I don't want to hear about it.
Dragging around buckets of feed to feed the stupid horses. Why don't you just do cows? This is crazy. I thought we were going to have a hard time with Sarah tonight. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Thank you for the call, Vondra.
We just got trolled.
I don't think so, man.
Vondra, good troll.
I don't think. Vondra, thank you for the call.
Yeah, thanks for the call. Let us know how it goes. Let us know when you get those investors, okay? I don't think it's going to happen. There's more coming up here. It is Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Moments remain. Maybe enough time for you. If you're on the lines at 603-283-6160 here tonight, it's Ian.
How are you?
And Conan.
Join us online at freetalklive.com. We just had a really unusual call from Vandra in California, and I kind of feel like she's the Sarah of California.
much more intelligible.
Dude, she was talking about...
She's just as harebrained of a,
yeah, but the California logic.
She's even more way out there.
It sounded like she actually maybe went to college.
Her plan was for cows to poop everywhere, man.
Sarah is a high school dropout, whereas this woman seems like she was a straight up college graduate, maybe even a master's. I'm just thinking.
Dude, no way.
I feel like she's got a little more going on than Sarah does, but Sarah is actually on the line here, and so I want to bring her in to get her comments. But first, I do have the story about the Finland thing, just to give us some idea of what was feeding into her belief system, what she had heard about. This is the FEI World Cup jumping show. So an equestrian show in Helsinki used horse manure to provide electricity. According to reports, according to Euronews.com, More than 100 tons of manure from 370 horses were used to create 150 megawatts of energy that not only provided electricity for the 4-day event, but also heated 26 small flats in Helsinki for a month. The event director commented about it, blah, blah, blah. Fortum Horsepower, which has helped the event power lights and scoreboards
Horsepower,
for a
Jesus Christ.
consecutive year, provides heat for approximately 1,250 customers in the area all year round. The VP of the company said, quote, "We first started to use horse manure here in 2015, first in small test amounts and then slowly ramping up the production and getting what is roughly now 10%. So they're only doing 10%.
Ian, this is
power.
Just like the bug eating argument.
No, I don't think so, dude.
If you think about the big picture, I mean, why don't you just burn the feed that you're feeding the horse? Why don't you just burn it?
Well, I mean, the thing
instead
is,
of turning it into a horse and so you're converting it into manure.
Good question.
No, it's not a good question.
They're not looking at the big picture.
Horses are going to poop.
So are cows.
Yes.
But
So
you can
why-
also eat the cow.
So there's nothing wrong with finding something productive to do with that manure.
I absolutely agree.
That's all they're doing.
But cows you can also eat.
But also, what's the
But
cost?
people have horses.
I agree with what you're saying, Arya, but there's a cost, right?
Right.
I mean, unless they've actually got the horses standing above some sort of machine that collects the poo.
You don't have to do that. You just go in there with a tractor after, which is scoop it up.
Right. But, I mean, there's a certain level of efficiency here, right? And so somebody's got to scoop it. Somebody's got to, move it. It's got to get moved.
But they're already doing that. They are already scooping and moving the poop
Well,
as
then I
we
agree
speak.
with Arya, then.
It would absolutely have to be cost effective.
I agree with Arya. I think they should use that manure.
Because you seem upset about it.
Because it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Which part's ridiculous?
The fact that they're defending horses.
But
that don't do anything.
But there are.
Why don't you just raise cows and do what you're doing with the manure already?
Because people ride horses. Some people eat horses.
Now,
Presumably, they make glue out of horse bones.
No. They don't eat
there
horses.
Are horse shows.
They feed horses to dogs.
Okay, there are horse shows. There are all manner of things that people do with horses.
Okay, here's another thing they're forgetting. Manure is also very good for gardening. It's also very good for crops.
Okay, so use some of it for that too. There's plenty of horses and plenty of poop.
Use all of it. Use all of it for the crops.
But they can get electricity from some of it.
This is ridiculous. This is just like the bug eating argument. This is what these greenies spend all their time fathoming, coming up with these great ideas on how to save the planet, and they're idiots because they've never worked a day in their life and they don't know how this works.
The difference between the bugs.
Go work on a farm. Go work on a farm for one effing day, you Vondra.
I don't know if there's
holy crap, man.
I think there's a difference between the bug thing and the horse thing.
No, it's the same thing.
No,
energy in, energy out.
The bugs, it's not the bugs they're making to feed to people. The horses, they're just saying,
what do the
hey,
bugs
take
eat?
that
No.
poop,
What do the bugs eat? What do the bugs eat?
Feed.
Just like chickens.
Yeah.
Just like horses, just like cows, just like everything else. Energy in, energy out. What are you actually getting? What are the calories you're getting out of these bugs?
Look,
why not just eat chicken?
Okay, but some people like horses. They're not eating. Yeah. They're not getting horses because they're like, this is almost as good as a cow, but not as good.
You're
they're
starving
getting horses because they like them.
If you're starving and you can't afford energy this winter, screw horses.
I don't think it would be a good idea to buy horses to try to make power from, Conan. But I agree with Arya. Like, if you've already got horses and you don't know what to do with the poop and you can burn it and make it a little bit of power, okay, fine.
Trust me, they've already figured out a way to do something with the horse poop. They're putting it on. They're probably selling it to farmers.
Let me bring Sandra. I was almost called her. Sarah is on the line here. Sarah, were you listening to Vondra's call from California?
She sounds pretty California. They're about the homeless. They want to save the green energy, the whole recycling, and also the California. They count their ballots if you mail it out on election day, as long as it's postmarked.
So you're not buying Vondra's idea. You don't think it's going to fly, this horse homeless, because you care about the homeless. You didn't think her idea to put the homeless to work on a horse farm is a good plan?
Well, I mean, it sounds kind of good. You could try it out, I guess. Anything, I mean, it's worth a try.
When you were homeless, would you have gone to work on one of these horse farms?
after I get rested up, but you're so wore out. I don't believe in making the homeless people work at the homeless shelter because they're so wore out.
They're not making you. They're not
from?
making you work. They're asking you, would you like to have a job? Would you like a good paying job to go work?
What are the homeless people so wore out from?
So you
Too
can
much
actually
drugs?
go buy groceries on your hard-earned money that you earned.
Have they been shooting up too much heroin? They were all worn out from that. Like, what are they wore out from?
Well, I mean, just not properly getting, figuring out where to go eat, where to take a shower. You can't sleep. That's what freeway. You're just always tired.
Now, look, I get it. If you're homeless and you're standing on this, because I see them here, they're standing on the side of the road
They're not
sometimes. They stand out there all day.
Those two, they're not even from here. They're from Massachusetts.
Really? You talk to them?
Yep. They're not even from Keene.
They make better money here?
They make a special journey to here.
Because it makes them more money?
Yep.
Yeah.
Too much competition down there in the cities.
I'll give them this. Standing there in the sunlight, that is exhausting. That's hard to do.
I guess.
I mean, that's not easy.
I guess.
I mean, standing in general, it takes
just
energy.
Standing, right? And just standing out in the sun all day long, that's not an easy thing to do.
Sarah, what do you think about
But
horse manure-powered speed lights? Traffic lights.
Well, I don't know if they could do something about, but I really calling about I'm going to vote by mail. And
Why?
then
Why vote?
Because she's lazy. She doesn't want to leave her house.
Well, it's something to do, and plus we got a drop-off box.
That's something to do?
Yeah, the mailman.
Generally, people don't consider staying home when you could go out something to do.
How the hell boring is your life that like voting is something you can do to occupy your time? Read a book.
Well, I'm gonna
Go take a walk. Oh wait, you might get hit by a car.
But I'm gonna walk it after I complete it. Put it in the inner, and I'm gonna walk it to. We got a drop.
Oh, you're gonna walk
box,
to the
so I don't wanna
mailbox?
Use it.
Wow.
No,
You
it's
really?
a drop-off box. You could. It's not a mailbox.
Oh, it's just for
actually
votes. It's just
yeah,
for votes.
It's just for ballots.
Do they put that in the trailer park? Is one of those actually in the trailer park?
Oh,
where
that makes
you live?
perfect sense.
No, we got a brand new county clerk office. So They're gonna have a camera on it, so they
Hold
can't
up.
be
So you're going to go
stolen.
all the way to the county clerk office just to drop a mail-in?
No,
what?
it's right in their trailer park.
Well, here's the thing: is that I don't want it to be lost in the mail or take. 7
Where
days
is
to
the
get there. I'm
box?
not gonna
Where
do
is
that.
the box that you have to take this to?
Downtown? They just at the county clerk. They have the.
Why not
county
just go to the
office.
voting precinct and vote that day? If you have to drive somewhere.
I just like to vote by mail just because I can. You
What's
know, in New Mexico.
So you're not voting by mail if you take it to the county clerk's office. That's where they calculate all the votes.
The thing is that they send me the ballots. I could fill it out at home, and when I get it ready, I could just put it in the drop-off box. I'm utilizing
Yeah,
it.
where's the drop-off
At
box?
the county clerk's office.
So why not just go vote that day, man?
What do you mean when you get it ready? It takes like 12 seconds to fill out a ballot.
Not really. No, it takes me about
Well, maybe
2
she's
days when I
researching.
get around to
Maybe
it.
she's oh wait,
And
she's
you know
got
what?
internet now.
Here's
She
the
can
thing.
research.
You know, I take it back. I don't think Vonda was trolling us at all. I think Sarah's been trolling us for years.
No way. She's real.
Are you real?
Come on, she's not putting us on.
Yeah, I'm for real. You know what? New Mexico.
How could you be that dedicated to a troll job? I don't think so.
You know what? Other states.
I think she's an AI. How long has she been on? Because 2016 was the day that
I
the
think she was
internet
on back
died
then.
and AI took over.
I
She's been
think we
on.
had
She's
her
been
on.
longer
Yeah,
than that.
We had her on in 2016.
You know, I'm proud of New Mexico.
All right. Well, call us about it another night. Thank you for the call tonight, Sarah. We didn't get to the fan baiting.
It's not going to go away.
All right.
It's a new thing.
Mark it for next week, Conan.
Fan baiting. I hate you, Hollywood. You're ruining my life.
In fact, we didn't even get to all the phone calls. It's just been wall-to-wall calls all third hour.
People, stop calling in the last 10 minutes or even in the last third hour.
I don't
We're
care
on
when
for
they
3
call.
hours.
They can call whenever they want. At least, we got to talk about some stuff.
Yeah.
So, hey, out of time tonight. See you tomorrow. Online in the meantime, freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? you can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are